We're all here and it looks like it's time. Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. I'm Vice Chair Sean Callaghy stepping in for Chair Mark Isle, who's unable to be here in person today, although he may be observing on Zoom. So let's first, I suppose, take roll. Member Mooney.
Present.
Member Bergman. Present. And alternate Member Kuhn will be voting tonight to help us form out our we have a quorum and then some, so.
I like the promotion.
There we go. So the first agenda item is to approve our regular meeting minutes for the October 1st meeting. So I don't know if everyone's had a chance to review those.
Annabelle?
I have. You have.
I move to
I'll
approve
entertain a
the
motion.
meeting.
Okay, there's a motion.
I second them.
Second.
I do abstain. I wasn't here.
Okay, fair enough. Any discussion or items for correction?
I am scrutinizing them.
Yeah, as we go here.
Very diligent. No, I don't get it. They're great. They were very good.
And all in favor of approving? Aye.
A little bit down.
Yeah, I'll pause. Member Vicente is here. Hello, welcome.
Yep.
Were you at the October 1st meeting? Our last one?
No, in October.
Okay, great. So I suppose the three of us who were at the meeting all vote to approve, so motion carries. All right, I think next on our agenda, excuse me, we have a special presentation, item 2, Safe Routes to School. Yes, presenters in here for that. All right.
Wendy Callan is the higher going to share.
Tag teaming, we're tag teaming.
Great. Why don't you introduce yourselves for anyone listening in and
Sure.
maybe unable to see you?
I'm Wendy Callens and I am the task force coordinator for the Safe Routes to Schools program. And this is David Parisi, who is our project manager and chief engineer. And I'm getting our presentation set up.
All right.
Wrong way.
There we go. All right, great. Okay, so Safe Routes to Schools has been around for quite a long time, 25 years. And in those 25 years, we have been holding task force meetings for all of the school districts, including the San Rafael School District. And at the task force meetings, we ask either the people from the school or our volunteers to identify the issues that are barriers for kids being able to walk and bike to school. And we have basically been using what I call the squeaky wheel technique to identify which issues we're going to follow through on, do a walk audit, do concept plans, and eventually get funded. But because of the merger with Parametrics, we have new tools at our disposal now to really start organizing the data in a way in which we can do a much more objective criteria for choosing which issues should be the priorities. And so we also want to look at a whole corridor rather than just spot issues, one intersection, one sidewalk missing, but looking at the priority corridors and creating corridor plans. So next slide, please. So we created what we call our overlay maps, and you see an example of it here. This is Laurel Dell Elementary School. We start with the route maps, which we have workshops with the parent volunteers and sometimes with the kids, and identify what the suggested routes to schools are. Then we overlay on top of that where the students are located. And you can see where there's the dark purple areas. That tells us that there's a lot of students in that particular area. And then we put on top of that the issues that have been identified over all the years, some of which have been combined into these corridor issues. And then we also have located things like crash areas because parametrics did a whole study on crashes throughout the county. So we have those identified as well. Not all schools were mapped yet. Venetia Valley was actually the last school that we just did this year. Of course, that's in the county, so that's not under your purview. But all of the San Rafael schools have been mapped and are in the hopper. Next slide, please. Okay, then we prioritize these issues using these different criteria. Each of these got a certain point value on them. If the school participates in safe routes to schools. If it's a Title I school, that gives us another point for equity. If it's along a neighborhood route, and that would be the routes, the suggested routes to school. We look at the road types, the crashes along the way. Route popularity goes back to what I showed you, where we had the congestion of students there. And then we give other points for specific infrastructure and other safety features. So all of these were combined into giving them a point value. And then, next slide, please. So we took what it was about 500 issues and we pared them down to about half that amount. Countywide, that included 40 schools with a score range anywhere from 13 to 31, but the actual distribution, if we looked at it, is 17 to 20. So next slide, please. So this will tell you where your San Rafael schools exist in the whole county as far as prioritization. So you have Coleman as number 2 on top prioritization. And then just a few doors down is Laurel Dell, Davidson, and Bahia Vista. And then we have some issues with Sun Valley that, that's scored a little, much further down the way. But what we're looking at is over the course of the next few years, could be 5 to 10 years really, is to really hit every single school. But for each task force, we want to be able to at least focus on one school for each task force so that each task force has something we're moving forward with. Next slide, please. So in San Rafael, we had 33 issues across 5 schools. Scores range from 30 to lowest of 13. And so you can see there countywide is in the light blue, sort of turquoise, and then San Rafael is in the dark blue. So you're up there as far as the whole county is concerned about issues. And it's not surprising, you're an urban area, you're going to have more issues here in an urban area. Next slide, please. Okay, David's going to take over here and we're going to talk about the highest priority issues.
Thanks, Julie. Hi, everybody. I'm going to step back to the previous slide. So we have looked at a lot of issues for a lot of the schools, countywide as well as in San Rafael. And as Wendy mentioned, these all been scored based on this criteria. Is the scoring perfect? Yes. No, actually, it's not exactly perfect, but it's very close. And it helps us really kind of aggregate things into what we think should be high, medium, or low priorities into different tiers. And that's why we're here tonight, because we want to share with you kind of the top 9 or 10 issues we're seeing for San Rafael based on scoring. And just to get your feedback on, do these make sense? Is this what you're seeing as well? At the end of the day, we're going to ask the Public Works Department to help us prioritize a few of these for doing some further assessments, walk audits, developing concept plans and whatnot. Some of these are projects we've actually already taken on. For instance, Lincoln and Paloma is a location that got grant funding, ASIP grant funding, right? And maybe Joanna could talk about where that's at in the process. But these are things that are not completed yet, but have scored pretty darn high based on that criteria that Wendy mentioned. Very high scoring, again, on the west side of 101, Lincoln and Paloma, that intersection. Coleman and San Rafael High School kind of share some issues at Mission Street and Grand. Again, what we've seen is intersection safety improvements. We don't have solutions for these yet, but these are the issue areas. Laurel Dell, Davison, neighboring schools, the whole Woodland corridor. Continues to come up as an issue about routes to school, lack of sidewalks and crossing considerations as well. Intersection of Bell and Union Street. So that's a big intersection. What can be done there to improve visibility and accessibility? We'll make these slides available. Bahia Vista, is the avenue in front of the school. We've taken a look at that already. We do have some ideas. We've done some walkouts there too, and so on. Davison, of course, Bellum, the whole Bellum corridor, some additional areas near Coleman, particularly some of the intersections that are skewed or wide. And then finally down at Sun Valley is when you mentioned Sun Valley didn't score as high on the criteria, but it's certainly on the list. So these are some of the things that we've identified as some of the higher tier issues for schools in the San Rafael City School District. Wendy,
That's not supposed to be there.
all right. It is. And
That's put there.
So San Rafael also includes some schools in the Miller Creek. We're not here tonight to chat about those, but we've had.
That's why it's here. That's right.
Yeah. So the Miller Creek School District obviously has schools in the city limits of San Rafael. So we have some additional areas there that have been identified, particularly at near Vallecito School, Mark Day School, some big intersections over in Terra Linda, Miller Creek Middle School, also some intersection enhancements as well. So our next steps, some of the input we want to receive tonight is going to be to work with the city and the task force to apply some of these results to guide where we do some of the walk audits that are going to be coming up, right? Do these scores make sense? Does the BPAC agree with them? Do you have some other considerations? Well, we're generally seeing, we've been doing this, these meetings with other BPACs throughout the county, is that, yeah, these are pretty much right, but maybe some things need to be flip-flopped a little bit or discussed or combined because the scoring is close. Is it exactly right? No, but it's based on the criteria. We're seeing things that are floating to the top that do make sense, and we want to hear about that tonight. As Wendy mentioned, we're now focusing more on corridors than individual intersections as much as practical. And again, we want to talk tonight about the starting point and see what the opinion is of the BPAC tonight.
You want to also mention the school safety plan?
Yeah. So we're working under a contract to Transportation Authority of Marin on a really cool funded grant school safety action plan. That's going to be about an 18-month long process where we're diving really deep into collision data, including collision data that includes kids during school time, with commute times, active transportation trips, all kinds of things. And that new crash data, which is available, and we've been mining it, it has a lot of new information we've never seen before. We're going to replace that with the overlay maps from the LRSP, Local Road Safety Plan data, and that'll help inform things as well. So we're very excited about that. As part of that process, we'll also be doing countywide, the top 10 priority areas that surface to the top. We'll be developing recommendations for those areas as well. So those may be above and beyond what we're talking about tonight if we discover some new information. So with that, perhaps what I'll do is go back to the list and open it up just for a few minutes for any discussion.
So two things we're looking at. One is your feedback on our prioritization, but we also, the entire list of projects, Kelly has them on a spreadsheet. These are the top priority, but there's about 40 in there. So we want to see if it aligns with the bike ped update that you're working on and how many of these projects are already identified in your planning. And to continue to be able to align what we're looking for with what you're looking for.
All right.
All right. Thank you. Normally, I believe we take questions from members of the commission for matters of clarification and the like. So I'll open the floor to any member questions.
Can you clarify how your weighting criteria worked with both pedestrian and bike? Like, so as I look at this list, I don't see too many bike improvement safeties. I see lots of wonderful pedestrian improvement safeties. And I'm just curious how you decided what's on top.
You want to start with some?
Well, I showed you the list of criteria. And yeah, so these are the criteria. I don't have the scoring at the top of my head of how many point values it went with each one. But I will say that as far as the kids going to school, that's a hard one to say without actually remembering, I have it back I have it on my computer right here, actually. But I can't really say why it came up with more pedestrians, except that there's probably a lot more issues with, a lot more kids are walking than are biking to school.
Yeah, that's what we're seeing in San Rafael for sure, and the proximity to school. There are some neighborhood schools that are popping to the top we're seeing as well. And you saw the list, right, with Coleman, a lot of walkers, school right
Bahia Vista,
Bahia
it's almost
Vista.
all walkers.
Yeah.
So especially with the Title I schools, you're not gonna see a lot of kids biking. They don't own bikes.
That does not mean we won't be looking at bicycle facilities as well, particularly along the corridors. You do see some of that pop out.
A couple of those around.
Like Davidson's a big one, right?
Is both walking and biking. Fifth Street obviously is both walking and biking. And
Say Davidson and as well.
Davidson and Laurel
Sure.
Dell.
I mean,
Again, Laurel Dell is mostly walkers. Any of the kids who live farther away, they're on the bus. That's another thing that's unique about San Rafael is San Rafael School District has a bus program. Most of the other schools don't. So the kids that live farther away that in other districts would need to bike are probably on the school bus.
Good question.
Thank you.
Yeah, could you kind of contextualize the score like outside of Marin County? Like, is 30, are we doing great? Are we doing terrible as compared to like maybe a state?
Nobody else is doing this.
Okay. What's the upper limit on the score? Or is it?
I think this helps a lot. This is countywide for all the schools that we're working with so far. And the San Rafael City schools are shown in orange here.
Mhm.
So yeah, I don't say you got problems, you got opportunities. Right? There's issues that need to be resolved, particularly for sports schools. I'll be honest also, we are seeing what the results are for active transportation crashes that involve kids, and we're seeing a lot in different areas of San Rafael. So and parts of Novato as well. So we think that there's going to be additional areas where we need to focus. So yeah, I hope this helps answer your question. No one else is doing this. This is intra-county.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You have the table back there. Is there a more detailed list of what the recommended improvements are somewhere?
We're not recommending anything yet. Our role in Safe Routes to School is to identify issues.
Okay.
And then work with the task forces, Public Works Department, police, and groups like yourself to identify potential short-term and longer-range solutions as well. So we need to understand what the issues are first.
What David and his team does is they create concept plans after we do a walk audit. And that concept plan is vetted through the city,
We certainly have to decipher.
but they're not detailed.
Yeah, when folks jump to a solution, we have to decipher what problem are they trying to discuss, right? And so we try to address these in issues initially.
And are you also looking at drop-off zones and how that could be modified to interact with whatever?
Wendy's shaking her head, and typically we don't, because that's drop off this cart. But if we're having bikes or peds walking through these areas and they're influenced by that, then we do. Yeah, and that's part of our mandate. It's part of Tampa State Routes to School program. We're looking at green trips, walking, biking, scooting, carpooling to a certain degree, and bus trips. But generally, active green trips, walking and biking as much as practical.
We're not usually trying to make it easier to drive.
No, I was thinking about more on the safety side.
Yeah, as David said, if there's a conflict,
It's a barrier.
yeah.
Questions from the committee? I mean, we could take some clarification questions, but normally we don't intersperse with public comment. So if it's just a quick matter of clarification.
Yeah, I was wondering why you skipped the Miller Creek slide, because much of the Miller Creek School District is still in the city of San Rafael. And this is the city of San Rafael BPAC. It's not, I thought you said it was not
No,
supposed to be here.
no, I skipped it when I went to the San Rafael School District yesterday, so I got confused.
Okay,
It
so
was
yeah, it would be good if we
looking
could
for
look at the slide for a little more time.
Yeah, and for sure, because we know that there's many issues and there's been some funding, which has been nice, particularly looking at Nova Albion and pathways between Vallecito and Mark Day and that whole Tierra Linda area, some wider streets, bigger intersections. And that's what I think some of the issues you're seeing here. Matthew.
Was there another point for clarification?
Yeah, David, I apologize. I walked in, you're kind of already started, and you said you're looking at corridors. Could you explain what corridors are?
Sure. In the past, as Wendy mentioned, we'd work with task forces and most of the time was, oh my gosh, we got this crossing. We need to look at this intersection, right? Or a small sidewalk gap. Now we're trying to expand our look and in some cases to look at entire blocks, of streets, routes to school, not just as spot locations, which is practical. Some of these are corridors, some of them are spots, but we'll expand that beyond. So we're all those dots on the map, Patrick, I don't know if you were here to see that. We know we've done anonymized data. We know where kids live. We know the routes to school. So now we're trying to complete those routes as much as practical. In many cases, it's more than just the intersection. So what can we do along the entire corridor? I don't.
It does, yes. Thank you.
Okay, now normally we open it up to comment,
John,
right?
there's a
From
question.
the committee. Oh, I'm sorry. Was there one more?
Yes, and I
point
don't
for
know
clarification?
if this is appropriate. I live up on Morton's Boulevard, which comes down to Octavia and Woodland. I'm surprised nobody's gotten killed on Octavia and Woodland, because if you look to your right, there's a telephone pole there, so you can't see if somebody's coming. And if you look to your left, it's on such an angle that there are cars parked there and I can't see through the cars. And a lot of us have talked about it and didn't know how to present that, but that was pretty good what just came out of my mouth. Because I was trying to figure out, how do you explain that to somebody who's not standing there? But it happens all the time. There's people parked on the left and right side of the road, so two cars can't go through. So already you have people that are annoyed because they can't get through.
Yeah.
And it's not even, it needs to be sort of even. And I worry about those kids all the time. And I worry about the drivers because, we feel just as bad as if somebody gets hit. So I don't know if that was appropriate to bring up, but somebody really needs to look at that intersection.
We'll note that.
Thank you.
All right, discussion among the committee then. We'll open that up. I'll go ahead and start. Thank you very much for the presentation. It's very, very informative. I'll admit it took me a minute to get used to it seems like you've come up with a custom scoring system. And so it took me a minute to understand whether you were ranking schools in the aggregate or projects, specific projects, because I see on this slide, there's
That's a great
multiple
question.
schools listed. So maybe that is more a question for clarification.
Yeah, we first off looked at issues near schools and then rated them. That's what you're seeing here.
Yeah.
And then we broke it down into potential issues, individual issues.
Yeah.
And that's what you're seeing
Okay, right.
here. So, and again, are these perfect? No, but these are the top rated ones. We say the upper tier. And would it make sense for some to be mixed up? And this is going to be addressed through a project, but are these right? Do these seem right? We're generally hearing, yes, the process is working. And, we're going back now and we're working with the task forces, the BPACs, with the top few, like folks are saying, no, we'd like to see that at a higher level, or let's just have that discussion.
Well, I support a sort of an analytical, data-driven approach, even if you have to, come up with criteria that maybe don't map super well to precise figures that at least allows us to get an ordering that hopefully people can agree. And if they don't, it seems like there's some degree for human judgment to play a role in adjusting the ranking. So I'm glad to see that. I am also glad to see the focus not just on spots, but on corridors. It seems like a smart way to go because maybe it's a question of resolving a spot that poses potential risk, but it's often more than just that. So I'm glad it's nice to see a holistic approach that at the same time takes real world data and looks for ways to avoid future harm. So I commend that. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, love this effort. As I look at, I'm not familiar off the top of my head with all of these, although I'm familiar with a lot of them. Things seem right to me. I will note when, for me, I see this and I say, okay, safe routes to school, we should prioritize this in our bike and ped master plan, which is an ongoing process, which we're talking about like next or in a couple meetings from now. A number of these do not show up on the top 20 list of projects in our citywide bike plan. Some of them do, but some don't. I just have it pulled up here. I was looking quickly during the presentation. For example, there's a lot of stuff around Coleman that's recommended and none of those hit as top 20 projects here. Some others do, Woodland does, but Sun Valley does not. And so I think, a goal or some feedback is like that we should, I know these are happening like at the same time, but hopefully this could inform changes in our top projects in the master plan here too, which I assume Jimmy's going to talk about later. That's my comment. So the ones that I see, this all seems quite reasonable on this slide. I would like to see that next slide also, the Miller Creek one, when people have a chance.
I was going to add, I would say that like some of the projects are listed in the top projects on the prior slide, and I think even one on here, we actually have grant funding for several of those projects. And it may not align exactly because, we're looking at a lot wider range, right? We're looking citywide versus really focused on like safe routes to school.
Mhm.
So that's, part of the reason why there might be some discrepancies. But I think maybe 5 or so out of the list, we already have grant funding for the projects.
Wonderful.
Like the first one that David was talking about, we
Yeah.
have the highway safety program grant for cycle 12, and then we have TAM safe pathway grants for a few of these too.
Wonderful.
And other planning grants, right, for Bellum and whatnot.
Oh yeah, plus the regional measure 3. Yeah. And then I think the mission one, is that covered by the ATP grant? Do you remember, Jimmy? Or a portion of it?
Mission and Grand. No, it's not.
Not at this point. Okay.
Block too far north.
Yes.
Any other comments from members of the committee?
I'm not familiar with all the locations. I would generally agree that the ones I do know, they make sense. I think my mind tends to go more toward the details, and I'm thinking of the locations I know and specifically what I know. And I guess the other question, and so I think it'll be really important to coordinate as much with the bike and ped plan update as much, because I look at some of these things and like, okay, Bellum 580 undercrossing is a huge project. How much of it is a school issue and how much of it is everyone else? And
Right.
it's not that close to Davidson, but I know a lot of people have to go through there. And so just trying to tie it to schools is I'm just trying to think about how to do that. But just a lot of pieces to put together. Yeah.
We're just happy to have a tool now to help prioritize, right? And I think maybe before we were looking at and assessing 15th ranked projects, right? But now we have a place to kind of say, hey, this all makes more sense. Right.
When you're looking at, that many issues and we're only able to do so many walk audits a year. We really want to make sure that we're looking at the areas that has the highest need.
Is there going to be a report that includes like a lot of?
Not everything gets reported to this.
Yeah, there will be. After we have vetted all this, go through the process, and we'll have, we'll publish the top rated ones in our travel plans.
Just want to emphasize the public comment on Woodland and Octavia. Like I live on C Street right around the corner and I've biked there.
And that's the other side that needs help.
Yeah, and well, just on that intersection by itself, you also have the entrance into the preschool there.
Yeah.
Right on the side. And so you have 3 cars that can come in and all be turning in within 50 feet. I've almost hit a child there and it's terrible. And so
It's frightening.
yeah, but that is a significant area.
And I tried to get the bicycle people.
I think
to
that
pay
it's
attention.
the reality there is that you have a lot of close call incidents that probably don't get reported. And that's also the path for kids to go into Gerstle Park that live in that area, going to Davidson and then some to Laurel. So
I'm not sure I know where that is. I'd have to look on.
It's a spot right here. It's actually currently not indexed.
Expect me to
So it's
see
right,
that.
right by my fingertips. It's not as part of the CBPP that we're going to talk about in a couple.
And all the people park on the sidewalk, which is interesting.
yeah, only 1 car can pass through there. And there's really 2 intersections next to each other because of the preschool entrance. And so 8 to 9 o'clock is
Love you, thank you.
glad to be loved.
Well, I'm constantly hearing screeches. It's like, they're like right outside my window. It's like, oh.
One clarification question too, just how this works with the Safe Routes dashboard that came out showing mode share a couple of months ago, if people are familiar. When I was looking at that, it was both encouraging because a lot of people do active transportation in Marin, but there were huge disparities within different schools. Like large differences in percentages of active trips in different schools within San Rafael and within the county. And so when you do this, you need to identify places that there's problems, and there's problems because people are doing it. But you also have to identify places that there are problems. Nobody's doing it because of the problem, some of these low schools. And is there a way, like, does your equity score balance that when you're waiting? How do you think about those?
Well, it's interesting with equity schools because they are lower income. Actually, a lot of kids have to walk to school because their parents are off to work, and that's the only way they can get to school. Maybe the family only has 1 car and it's gone. So there's a lot of different factors about why some schools are perform better than others. And some of it has to do with if it's a neighborhood school and it's easier access. So infrastructure does have a lot to do with it. And that's why it's important for us, right now, when we look at the number of kids, the percentage of kids who live within a quarter mile of the school and compare it to the number of kids who walk and bike, they're pretty much even. So the kids who live close enough to walk and bike probably are walking and biking. And so, yes, the barriers of kids who live farther out, part of it is distance, but part of it is infrastructure. And that's why it's important for us to create these corridors so those kids have an easier access. And maybe we've improved 1 intersection, but now there's no sidewalk. So, we have to really look at all the infrastructure along the corridor.
Yeah, I think all this criteria is super important. The good news is Marin, we're 3 times the national average for walking and biking.
Yeah.
It's pretty outstanding. But we do have some schools where it's lower, right? Some that are higher. So looking at the route maps where kids live, we know for every school, by the way, the average distance to school from home. We also know how many kids are walking and biking. And we know the barriers. So yeah, all that stuff's being pulled together and accounted for in this application.
I think recognizing avoidance intersections or areas is really important. Like I used to bike to San Rafael High School, and I would avoid San Pedro just before Embarcadero and instead bike up and over the hill through Marina just to avoid that spot because the bike lane would disappear and then you'd have a blind corner going or you disappear around the corner, people can hit you behind. I've had a few close calls there and I just said, I'll just huff it over the hill. And so maybe there's other intersections throughout the city that would be a better path for kids, and they're just outright avoiding it because of different circumstances like that.
And by the way, we didn't come up with these issues, right? As Wendy mentioned, hundreds of issues have been identified by task force members, parents, kids, schools, and others. We've just documented them and then put them through this process. So it's folks like you guys who brought these up, right? And then we see where they rank.
There needs to be a way to present these things also, because I had no idea how to present it and I didn't know how it was going to come out of my mouth, but it actually came out okay.
Yeah, it did well.
But you sort of look at it and go, I know I sent it to the see, click, fix thing once and never heard back from them, and I didn't actually think I would. But I've been thinking about that for ages. You know, you just sit there and you're going, oh my God, I can't see. And the people that were talking about it were mumbling, so I couldn't hear what they were saying. And I'm thinking, this is a problem.
All right, well, I
Thank
think,
you.
are there any further comments from the committee?
So popularity, is that based on counts or is it based on the routes, based on their address? I think of it as more potential.
It's based on the number of, you know, I showed you those dots where
Right.
kids live. That's what it's based on.
Okay. So
So if you've got, you know, 50 kids who are going to be using that corridor, that means it's a popular route.
Yeah, I'll just take you back on that map right there, for instance.
Yeah.
Just accept them.
Well, I was just thinking about the question that Phil asked, and it's like, well, if the conditions are bad, then there might be people who live really close but don't walk.
Right.
But this way it shows that there's the potential for them to walk if the problems are fixed.
And we've heard stories of people who live just around the corner and they still drive their kids to school.
Yeah, so we're looking at benefit cost in that case.
Okay, thank you.
I just only want to say thank you for bringing this tonight. For me, it's really important because I'm a mother and I know what happened with all the schools, and when the kids is biking, it's really dangerous for them. But you say some corner, that's really hard. And another thing, I said the kids out here, they walking more than bike because in some schools they steal their bikes. For example, in San Rafael High, many bikes they lost. They prefer to walk than biking, but that's really important what you bring tonight for me. And I hope we figure out something to help around.
All right, well, then I think all right, we can hear one more comment, but,
You haven't opened it up to the public yet.
oh, I'm sorry, we need to open it up to the public then. Thank you, appreciate
Okay,
it.
I have another question first and then comment. Are the ones we saw on the two lists, is that everything for San Rafael, or are there others that just didn't make it onto the slides here because they ranked lower?
There are others that didn't make it on the slide. As I said, Kelly has the entire spreadsheet. And I would hope that you would distribute that to all the committee members so
Okay.
that you can take a look at it.
Could the public see that as well?
I think we can discuss how best to share and collect feedback, whether it's like the city or safe routes to school. I think we should probably coordinate on that.
Yeah, let's do
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, now my comment. So there's at least a couple of corridors that I do not see on these lists, and maybe they were on your longer list that we're not seeing here. So I'm not sure if that's the case or not. But one of them is Nova Albion. That is in the city of San Rafael, although it's the Miller Creek School District, between Montecillo Road and Las Galinas. We saw adjacent corridors here, but not Nova Albion itself. Nova Albion is a very busy street. It serves Vallecito, Mark Day, and Terra Linda High School. There's parking on both sides. There's no bike lanes. There's lots of kids who want to ride bikes to these schools, but there's no safe place to do so. So I really think Nova Albion ought to be ranked higher and show up on these lists here.
It is on the longer list.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm surprised it didn't rank higher. And the other one is Davidson Middle School. And this is one where there already has been a walk audit that was done last year. And I don't see Lindaro Street or Jordan Street listed here as corridors, but they are, as you can see on our map here, potential safe routes to school pathways serving Davidson Middle School. And again, Lindaro Street, Jordan Street, lacking any bike lanes. And I know we don't have a lot of kids riding currently to Davidson, but that's probably because there's not very good infrastructure for them to do so. So it's a case of if you build it, they would hopefully come.
One reason why Nova Albion might not have ranked as high is because we are not looking at high schools in this process right now. And so the Vallecito's kids and the Mark Day kids are probably not the high population that is needing those bike lanes. It's more the Terralinda kids.
Okay, it's also on the way to Miller Creek Middle School, and a lot of middle school students ride bikes.
So you said you're not considering high schools in this list, or?
In this list, no, we have not been,
Because I see Sanford High School listed and,
occasionally things
Yeah.
come up.
okay.
But for instance, we did not plot where the Santa Fe High School kids live.
Okay, it's
Or
just
where the
they're
Terralinda High
involved
School
in that
kids
part.
live.
Yes, just want to say I'm glad to see you guys have this project. Really appreciate your studies and the solutions. I think it's wonderful. Although I am curious, did you identify any issues in the Point San Pedro corridor?
Yes.
Yes, they just didn't raise to this level.
Okay. I see this as a blind spot because you've got Glenwood Elementary, San Pedro Elementary, and although you might not be considering high schools, but San Rafael High School, as Christian has also made a testament. Also, Phil's comment about nobody's doing it because it's a problem. There's a lot of parents that won't let their kids bike or walk to those schools on the Point San Pedro corridor because they're deathly horrified of the gravel trucks screaming by. And I know I'm emotionalizing this and that's not right, but the problem is that there's nobody there because it's a problem.
There's one of our parent volunteers is actually organizing a winter bike ride
Yes,
along that corridor. Are you aware of?
I'm coordinating that with her, and we're not
Okay.
doing it on Point San Pedro because it's too dangerous. And I've begged people to do this, but it's just not practical. And I think that the awareness of having these bike buses are what can help drive things. But if they're too scared to do that, it means that it's a worse problem than we can imagine. I'm all for a bike bus. I think that it's fantastic. It's a way to get kids to go to school together in safety with numbers. But I really think I'm making a strong recommendation on taking a closer look at that corridor.
Okay, I see another comment. Go ahead.
My name is Patrick Seidler. I'm with WTB-TAM. And first off, I really wanted to thank Parametrics and Wendy and David. You know, you guys have been working on this for 30 years. They've been doing it starting, when Safe House Schools was actually a national project started here in Marin County and helped initiated by Wendy. And so congratulations to you. And it's really great to see how the system, how the programs become more sophisticated through the years. I mean, this is really impressive. So just, congratulations to you. And I also wanted to thank the staff and Parametrics for the Centerville Bike Plan meeting we had the other day. Was it brought up that issue, David, the question I asked about corridors. And in that regard, I really have to echo what Matthew said, which is that Nova Albion corridor, even though Wendy, what everybody needs to remember is that in front of Terralinda High School and down Nova Albion, that pathway is being brought all the way to Monticello, and that whole neighborhood who sends kids down to Vallecito or Mark Day, even though some kids might go up to Santa Fe, it really opens a lot, so I encourage you to take a look at that again more closely. And then Matthew, you want to just pull that up again, maybe put it down flat on the table. Is we talked to Parametrics and the city staff. And one of the things, David, that came up was kind of like your idea of a corridor, but a little bit more macro. In fact, I think it was David Hoffman was kind of the one who brought it up for funding as well with ATP. But interestingly, what we think there's two really great areas in Santa Fe to look at in a more macro area. And one of them is what we call the crossroads, which is really all the access points, to Davidson Middle School, like the biggest middle school in Santa Fe. And it's also connecting the North-South Greenway, the Crosswind Trail. But we think that you need to look at all those pieces to it that'll open up the real ability for people to walk and bike to school. And we've been talking about this for 30 years. And so what we want to do is take a look at that macro look, because maybe there's an opportunity to get larger funding. And what we found out was through ATP process, you could do that. Unfortunately, I think this is not equity priority community, because it's just outside the area. But through safe routes and the county funding that's available, and there seems to be a lot of county funding available, we think if you look at the macro area, that you could advance these projects together through design through, you know, engineering, environmental clearances, getting shovel ready, and then getting some of the pieces put together. But we encourage you to take a look at that entire Crossroads project, and we've sent it to you before, we'll send it to you again, and we'll pass along to the BPAC. So thanks very much for the opportunity to address it.
Yes, thanks for comment.
Yeah, quick comment. Thanks everybody for the work. Kind of reiterating the issue on corridors and buses. One thing I've noticed is that a lot of folks walk to school bus stops, and I think that we should consider at least evaluate the locations of critical bus stops and the routes to those, because I pass one all the time on my ride to drop him off at preschool, and the bus, I think it picks up for Sun Valley on First Street and kind of C, and there's tons of families, lots of cars coming in and out off of D, and I just think that that's an important, maybe a little bit of a blind spot for us, but an important aspect of two modes of folks getting to school is they walk to the bus stop and then the bus will take them the rest of the way. And safely getting to the bus is an important aspect of this evaluation. So thanks a lot.
Great. Well, thank you all. I think that concludes it for the special presentation. Thank you very much. It's been very, very informative.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, well, I think that takes us to our other agenda items. Item 3A concerns public comment, time limitations.
That's gonna be me.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
Looking for help here.
My name is Lindsay Lara. I'm the city clerk for the city of Center Fall. The item before you this evening is public comment time and the duration of public comments. Right now, the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee has a 3-minute public comment time. Since 2022, the City Council has worked to get all of our boards, commissions, and committees to be uniform and standardized. Before that, you walked into one board or commission, it was handled one way, and if you went to a different one, it was completely different. It was really confusing to understand what the process would be. So we've tried to get everyone to be consistent. You've seen bylaw changes over the years, the number of committee members on each board or commission. And so in the last year and a half, we've been working to get everyone to 2 minutes. The majority of our boards and commissions were at 2-minute public comment time. Our city council is at 2-minute public comment time. We had about 5 boards and commissions that were at 3 minutes. And now the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee is the only committee that is 3 minutes. So you were the 16th of our 16 to hopefully move, if you do choose to do so, to 2-minute public comment time. So the recommendation this evening is to move to 2 minutes from 3 minutes. It would not be effective this evening, obviously. One of the benefits to moving to 2 minutes is the consistency with the city council. We were seeing a lot at our city council meetings. People have written prepared 3-minute public comment statements, and that was because they had experience with their other boards and commissions that were 3 minutes, but our city council was 2 minutes, and it's kind of difficult to have to trim those down when a decision is being made that at that point cannot be reversed. It's the final body is 2 minutes. So again, the recommendation for the evening would be to move from 3-minute public comment to 2-minute. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have a question about enforcement of the 2-minute public comment. Is that the chair that does that? And if the chair decides people can have more time, how does that work?
That's exactly
For example,
right.
if there's one person there and we have plenty of time.
Yeah, I think I've noticed this evening, and when I've presented at other boards and commission meetings, they don't always have a timer at all. For example, there was no timer for the public comment was just received. It's a tool to make sure that there's some organization and structure to the meeting. But obviously, if there was comments, usually I'll even see the mayor will say, wrap up your comments. We're not muting the microphone or making everyone stop at exactly 2 minutes. But ultimately, it's up to the chair to say, would you please wrap up your thoughts? The idea there is to make sure that everyone in the room has the opportunity to provide comments. If this room was packed and everyone was going over a lot, you want some mechanism to say, I'm sorry, it's 2 minutes each. Be respectful to the person behind you who wants to give comments as well.
All right.
As long as there's discretion, that's fine with me.
Yeah, it seems it bakes in a healthy degree of discretion, which it seems this committee observes regardless. We like to be friendly, but I do think it makes sense. Is there a comment?
Patrick Seller again from WTVTN. Lindsay, I really want to thank you for that input. And let me give you the other side of the coin on it. So we, do advocacy throughout the county, through all the cities, the county, lots of different places. And we have the opportunity to see the differences and who does really well. And I have to tell you guys, San Rafael is really dialed in. You guys have done how far you've come in the last 15 years is incredible. 10 years, incredible. And so I want to compliment you on that. As an advocate, as a public person who goes to the meetings and has that time, 2 minutes, it's almost impossible to have a coherent statement that's substantive in 2 minutes. Absolutely impossible. I dare any of you to get up in 2 minutes and do that because we have to do it. So we're like, in 3 minutes, though, you can actually formulate your presentation a little bit better and communicate a little bit better information for a committee to consider it and then bring up a recommendation to the city council. So I'd urge you to go back to the city council and let them know that this is the one place so you get 3 minutes where you can make a coherent comment. And we hope that we can make a difference at that level, because at the 2 minute level, you really don't get that same opportunity. And so it's not like there's a bunch of people knocking the door down here. It's like very limited number of people making public comments. So I urge you to consider the setting. And when you go to the city council, they got 200 people who want to talk to that. Like 3 or 4 here. So it's the one opportunity the public has to make a coherent input to the process. So please consider.
2 minutes, 1 second.
You did it with the clean one. Can I say something to that?
I think we're kind of into public comment, but we're doing this a little.
I was just going to say that I fully agree with that. I mean, the consideration 2 minutes, 3 minutes in a time frame does not seem like much. We're talking about from 3/3 to 2/3. It's quite a chop off of what you have available, especially for the idea of having a beginning, middle, and end to your argument. And beyond that, it seems that there's very little to gain from this other than the idea that all of the parties are in alignment. And I have very much enjoyed kind of the candor of this body, feeling like I can come in here as a citizen and have a voice in a small room with a small group of people in a place, a part of the city that I have a whole lot of interaction and directly affects my environment. So I've really appreciated that. And certainly I've had the liberty of going beyond 2 or 3 minutes in here. And but I fail to see the necessity of it other than the pleasing factor of 16 of 16. So thank you.
All right. Yep. I think we're next.
Really, I couldn't agree more with the prior two speakers. And I think the point about the city council meetings, and that makes sense with 2 minutes, but this body a lot, we're a lot more deliberative and appreciate the extra time to get the points across. Now, I also think that I really struggle with the fact that that this committee and the city public meetings are no longer taking public comment over Zoom, which other municipalities in the county have either maintained or reintroduced after pausing. And I feel like between shortening public comment in person and also keeping public comment or keeping the ban of public comment virtually is problematic. So please consider continuing and potentially expanding the virtual option to comment publicly during our meetings. As you know, as you see, I've got young ones, and it's I'm gonna have to actually leave here because he's got to go to bed. So I have to do that and can't make comment after for the rest of the agenda items in person. Thank you.
He's awfully adorable, by the way.
Thank you. Let the record show. All right.
Definitely want to echo what Dave said, agree with it. That rule change happened because of one racist Zoom bombing event over a year ago. And I think those racist Zoom bombers have gotten tired and moved on to other things. Like I haven't seen them recently in any of the meetings I attend. So maybe it's time to go back to Zoom comments, but maybe here's a middle ground. If you keep the Zoom comments banned, then keep the 3 minutes here in person. Maybe if you reopen the Zoom comments, then you can cut it down to 2 minutes. How about that?
Like the 3 minutes pen. This is like my favorite meeting, by the way, you guys.
Lindsay, are you able to comment on Zoom and Zoom participation and if there's any sort of official stance on that?
I don't have, there's no stance at this moment as to what's going on with virtual public commenting with the city at this stage. We're not bringing it back. There has been some legislation that will be bringing it back to the city council effective July 1st, which we will be bringing forward to the city council meeting, virtual public comments. That's Senate Bill 707 that was recently passed, and we will be moving forward with implementation of that, which will be great. But I don't want to go too much into it because it's not agendized, and I do believe that there would be plenty of interest in public comment on that topic, and people would want to notice, and we want to be in compliance with the Brown Act and make sure that that's agendized before I go any further into Zoom discussion and hybrid participation.
Yeah, Christian, yeah.
I think our role here is to try and advocate the public interest in bicycle and pedestrian situations. I think the people who come here are the most, like, people who take the time to come here have not only the best picture, but are always the most engaged and excited to talk about it. And so shrinking that time down feels uncomfortable. And there is a culture here that I think that values this. And I don't, like in my time here, we've never cut anybody really short unless we were, 9 o'clock or something, unique situations. And so is there some middle ground where we can because there is a role here to be able to you don't want people going into City Hall being mistaken or coming here being mistaken, and there's an appropriateness for that. Is there somewhere we could somehow enshrine that culture in a way where that discretion, that culture exists now, but let's say 15 years from now, and we have, when I'm the chair and I'm very aggressive and cut everybody off. Is there some way we could find a middle ground with that where if the attendance is at a certain limit, we stick within 3 minutes, and if the attendance is over that, then it shrinks down to 2 minutes, or is that too complicated? Suggestion.
This came up at the last meeting. It's not ideal to have a varying amount for public comment. I think that members of the community might come here very frustrated at this committee and very frustrated at staff. And I would hate to see a chairperson use discretion in a way that would feel like it was undermining the voices of the community. Yeah. So I think it gets dicey if you're not going to be consistent with that. Obviously, as you've seen, there's no timer. I did happen to time just for fun because I'm here, and I was timing, and no one went over except for one slightly over 2 minutes, and most were quite under 2 minutes. So obviously that changes given the topic. This topic that was before us before my item was a special presentation. There wasn't a big decision being made that was going to impact the community or cyclists, right? So maybe those comments would have gone closer to 3 if it was a different topic. But this evening they were all under 2 minutes with the exception of one. And obviously I'm seeing discretion being used. It seems like the format of this meeting is welcoming to Q&A from staff, community members, committee members at any given time. So what the formula you're utilizing now is working. I don't envision that changing given the fact that everyone is watching. However, to have it on our materials and make sure that if people are providing written materials or written comments in advance, my staff presentation, and it's unfortunate because I agree. Obviously I'm an elected official. I'm here for my community. And also this is a difficult topic because not a single member of the public will ever be in favor of staying or reducing their time limit to provide public comment from 3 to 2 minutes. So it's kind of a difficult position to be in, but my recommendation stays the same for uniformity, consistency, and ease of use for our public to know what they're walking into every time they're walking into a public meeting.
Thank you.
Point of clarification, it says our recommended action is to accept new public comment time limit for future BPAC meetings. Is that to say that the committee is able to determine for itself, or are we being informed that this is the city policy and we are being asked to recognize it?
The committee tonight, you have the options that you have, I think is what you're getting to, is you could choose to do whatever you want. There's no direction there's nothing in our rules and procedures document that was adopted by the city council that required all of our boards and commissions to be 2-minute public comment. All of them are 2-minute now, except for Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. You can choose as a body to say, I hear your recommendation and I hear the community and I'm choosing to stay at 3 minutes. You could also say, we're going to stick with the city, align with the city, other boards and commissions, and we will go to 2 minutes. It's ultimately up to this body, this legislative body, to make that determination. Staff's recommendation that's just my recommendation. And it's up to you ultimately as the ones who have been appointed by the city council to make your own decision.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
So a question. I mean, it seems like the main reason you would want to be able to have a 2-minute limit is if there were 50 people in the room and you really wanted to make sure you didn't sit around for half a night. And we rarely have that situation. So if that situation does arise, would we then have the authority to say, okay, tonight it's only 2 minutes?
So yeah, you do. It's not something I don't believe our city attorney's office would recommend you do that, because if you have 30 people here, it's a passionate item. And the last thing they want to do is feel like not only are you maybe not going to give them what they want, you're also going to reduce their voice by a minute, So it gets, again, when you start to go into the, depending on the scenario, it does get really dicey because the emotions of the community are strong and this is their outlet to have their voice heard. And just one thing that I didn't include in my presentation, over the last 10 plus years, we always had written testimony and correspondence submitted to our council or board and commission members, but far less until COVID. And once COVID hit, it was really became a part of our process that we expect to read, as the committee members, you're expected to read correspondence that's submitted in advance of the meeting. Our council members are expected to do the same. And so there is that additional mechanism for public comment that didn't really used to be status quo. So there's more than one avenue to have your voice heard, but I obviously I recognize that the staff presentation provides additional information. Other things that are heard during the meeting provide additional information that is useful for that live public commenting.
Right, should we take it back to the committee for deliberation then?
I think you pretty much did a great job.
Well,
I think it's hard in any situation to say to shrink public voice. It's a hard thing for me to get past. But with that said, there are different avenues for it to be coming through, like the written submissions. I don't know. It's hard for me to get past that.
Yeah,
I think like in the ideal world, if we were setting structures, maybe the other 15 should move to 3 minutes, but that's absurd, maybe. I'm not making friends, but it's hard for me to get past that. You got what does the team think here?
I kind of feel like what we have been doing works for us, and that's been fine. So what strikes me as a little bit weird is that the problem we're trying to fix is that we're out of alignment with the other committees. It's not that there's anything wrong with the way that it's functioning here. So I think that's where I'm sort of struggling with it. So does that on its own warrant reducing the time?
That's a good point.
I mean, I kind of feel like if it was decided that we would go to 2 minutes, I would think, from my perspective, I would just informally keep it 3 anyway, unless we totally packed and couldn't otherwise get out of here at a reasonable hour. But then the committee changes and then whoever's on the committee gets to make that call. So then
exactly.
Yeah.
Culture changes.
My view is that I think it's fine to align with city policy, and I can see the benefit such that people who go to different meetings aren't, mistaken about what the standard time is. I've been there when, at various committees or, the county or the coastal commission where you might have 1 minute, you might have 2, you might have 3, and you have to tailor your comments accordingly. And if you got more to say, submitting and writing is a good way to go. It's often, better because you might get more thoughtful review. So my take is, from being a part of this committee now for 2 years, that we might have a timer running, but it's very rare that somebody says, grab the hook, you're done, because we do want to hear everybody out and we give people discretion there's a fair bit of back and forth on committees. You speak once and then you speak no more on a given issue. We don't seem to do that here. So I think there's plenty of culture in the committee to permit the leeway that we've all been enjoying and we don't want to see jeopardized. So my view is that adopting a formal 2-minute policy, but, recognizing that, in general, we're going to treat that as a soft 2 minutes. I don't see that as undermining the work of the committee or the ability of the public to participate. And if we do find that this is harming our work, we can always change the policy again. So I'm for adopting the city's recommendation here.
So it's a good framing of it. It's
It's hard to say just. Sometimes I come in the meeting there, but I saw they put in the timer at 2 minutes. And sometimes the people talk less and some of them they don't. That's another question is, it's like you say, they say write and submit, but somebody really read what the people writing and submit in the line? Is everything behind that, what they say, what they want, or that's only what they hear in the moment and they say submit and it's disappear this point?
Is the question that if when people are submitting their comments,
Yeah.
are they coming to you? Is that the way that's out? Yes. So, for example, I am what I do for the city council, what your staff liaisons do for the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. And anytime someone submits comments that's even in the body that says, please submit to the mayor and the city council, I make sure that I forward it to them. It's my job as a liaison between the community and the council to serve in that way, as is the staff liaisons, making sure that any public comments submitted in writing go to the entire body of the BPAC.
Yeah, that is kind of a good thing that we get those emails before the meetings. So we kind of have time to contemplate that before actually getting into these situations. And sometimes that can inform me how I'm going to approach a concept.
Yeah, I found those written submissions very helpful, especially when there's a proposal or it's detailed. I absorb it a lot better through reading it. So I'm always grateful for those. It gives you time to think about it before you come in, and somebody can then hit the highlights in their comments.
So then conversely too, I don't want to use a good solution to justify not allowing other good solutions. Like that doesn't necessarily need to exist without the 3 minutes or the 2 minutes.
I'm surprisingly torn. Only at this committee is this such an issue, but I think that the reason it's an issue is because everything is so passionate to the people who show up to these meetings. And we as a committee are hugely dependent on the individual and specific knowledge of individuals that come here because it's their lived experience. Like, people probably don't know what Upper Fremont Road is normally, but now we do.
It's Fremont.
That being said, I agree with everything Sean said. I agree with what Lindsay said. I don't actually think it's going to change anything, but it's hard. I think we're more dependent on public comment than just about anybody in the meeting. I also think in my tenure on this committee, which is starting to be pretty long, and yours too, we just haven't had a problem. And we're happy to get the meeting minutes. I didn't solve anything there, but we need both.
Deliberation.
Okay. Well, is there a motion then?
I think everybody's afraid.
And I think about later, right? If it was just now and us here, I wouldn't have any worry about being 2 minutes, right? And I think I wasn't even thinking about what Bill was as much as just like there's that like knowing that hyper local regional experience is dependent, but that's not to say that 2 minutes isn't enough to get it across. And then the discretion that we often share and extend doesn't get applied.
Plus written comment.
Which is getting more and more.
No matter what, I will move to accept the new public comment time limit for future BPAC meetings. We then will vote on it.
Okay, yeah.
But that is the movement that we need.
You're the motion.
It's the motion, yeah.
Maybe I have the second. So there's a second.
Just don't bring a timer with you.
then,
I think we broke the time. Our deliberation. That's the longest, but it's
yeah, I feel like this kind of illustrates the point about time management. Okay, well then, unless there's further comment from the board, let's go ahead
Can we
and
just abstain?
put it to a vote. Those in favor of the motion.
You serious?
So we have 3 in favor and those opposed. Any abstaining?
I mean, yeah. Oh, I'm saying, is it bad to say no? I don't want to, I'm abstaining and saying no. I'm voting yes. What'd you say?
It's worse to say, wait, yes to adopt.
I wish I could have said no. But yes to adopt. Yeah, I'm gonna vote no.
Okay. All right, did the minutes have that?
311.
Yeah.
Yeah.
311, yeah.
Okay, great, thanks.
The public is disappointed.
All right. Well, we'll move on to agenda item 3B. Thank you, Lindsay, for your.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm back.
All right.
Like I said, it's you could vote, you could vote no, you could vote, it's just staff's recommendation.
I know, but you know more than I do.
You're the body. You're appointed for a reason by the mayor and the city council.
Thank you very much.
Good night, Lindsay. Good night.
Goodness.
Runs out.
Should I go take a shower? I'm also pretty sure that's the 3rd time that's come here.
Add something to this. When I watch the city council meetings and they go over 2 minutes, the mayor doesn't say anything, then she eventually does start to like vote. It's not like she's consistent by any means, at least,
It's, yeah.
I don't know about this year, but every other year,
No, but
that's what it's
they
happening.
can't do it. I mean, it's experience.
You're starting the timer?
Everybody, I recognize there's strong feelings. We have several other agenda items. So let's proceed with our agenda to 3B, please. I think April or Kelly, sorry, you're gonna help us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My name is Kelly. I am the city's project manager on the citywide bicycle and pedestrian plan.
Louder, please.
We have an update for you all. As you know, or might not know, we're in the midst of the 2nd round of engagement for the plan. We're here with parametricist Jimmy, who is the consultant on the project. And he's going to give us a little update on what has been found in the phase 1 of engagement and what are the next steps and what we're looking for in terms of feedback from you all and from members of the public. Oh yeah, and Jimmy will also be here doing the following 2 items. So Pedro and Amy.
Wow, great. The more the merrier. Thank you. Kelly, appreciate it. Happy to be here tonight. Thank you, Jimmy Jessup. I'm a transportation planner and engineer, parametrics. You might have got a bit of a foretaste of some of the topics we'll talk about, overlapping with the safe routes to school presentation as well. Although I recognize this is just a regular agenda item, not a special.
Can you speak a little louder?
Yes, so we're happy to talk about the citywide bicycle and pedestrian plan update. We presented to the BPAC about a year ago on this topic as well, or not a year ago, maybe half a year ago. So I'm gonna do a little bit of recap, but mostly bring us up to speed of where the project has come to now. But to remind ourselves, the bicycle pedestrian plan really is a mid to long range planning document. It casts a vision for how active transportation users have identified needs to improve their experience, and also infrastructure projects, programs that are on a list for the city to adopt in order to improve those transportation experiences. You'll see here a picture of the 2018 bicycle and pedestrian plan, and that's the currently adopted plan for San Rafael. And it's my opinion that it's one of the better ones in Marin County. And so, of course, we commend San Rafael for taking it on to update. We'll look to issue in 2026 an update, but an 8-year update is within the normal range of a 5 to 10 year update cycle for this type of plan. There is a little bit of work that goes behind this. About a year ago, we started this process in partnership with the city. We undertook an existing conditions assessment. I'll talk about a little bit of what we dove into, and importantly, we conducted a first round of outreach for the plan this past summer. We took a lot of that input that was gathered through various events and culled through and developed draft network recommendations. We'll talk a little bit about that tonight. And that brings us to where we are now. This fall, we have been conducting a second round of engagement. And we're looking to issue a final plan and have that adopted sometime in the spring. So this is a collage of some of the things that go into this process. You'll see we start, of course, not from scratch, but from the 2018 plan. And our work looks to scaffold off of what already exists, but also to bring in other adopted plans and policies throughout the region or locally. Of course, San Rafael has updated its general plan, its downtown specific plan in the past few years. Marin County has adopted its countywide transportation plan. MTC has issued an update to their Bay Trail implementation plan, and all these planning documents go into the way that we think about what casts a vision for bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure in San Rafael. Also importantly, we conducted our first round of engagement, and so we've taken all of that in to create our updated recommendations, and this is all in draft form where we stand now. The first round of engagement we undertook earlier this year, a variety of engagement platforms, in-person, virtual, online. You'll see us at a number of events, meeting the community where they're at pop-ups. We have some friendly faces also at our community meeting that was in May of last year, and we also had a virtual meeting as well. We conducted engagement and received input by a number of means, written sticky notes, an online survey, boards at engagement events. We had our website that has been running for the past year. So I'll just touch on a few of the highlights from the first round of engagement. We had 170 survey participants that added up to about 650 individual bits of input that we've taken in. Of the survey respondents online, about 45% were from households with median income below 150,000, 30% from households that own 2 or fewer vehicles. I mentioned this because our key audiences for our engagement include residents of equity priority communities, the Canal, Terra Linda, and then also transit riders. And so we did not meet our target engagement metrics for those communities in the first round of engagement. That's something that we've looked to try to up the game on in the second round here. A little bit of a glimpse to one of the questions that we asked in the survey: what challenges do individuals face when walking in San Rafael? This kind of highlights a theme, a lot of traffic safety concerns, a lot of concerns about not feeling safe while also biking or scooting or using personal mobility devices. Not a surprise, but something that we take into account when we're evaluating that input. Sorry, we can go to the next slide.
Oh, sorry,
That's okay, potentially so. And then maybe just to highlight a few of the themes that we received. We were surprised and pleasantly so by the amount of positive feedback that we received. Things like safe routes to schools programs, flashing beacons at crosswalks, daylighting were highlighted as thank you. We would like more of that. And then, of course, importantly, we also have a glimpse of, well, we would like more of. Still have challenges crossing the street, wayfinding downtown, sidewalk gaps, of course, traffic behavior and comfort of walking, and also accessibility barriers. So similar outlay for bicycle engagement themes. We really heard a lot of positive feedback on the protected cycle tracks, also routes to schools for children, but still more needs to be done. A lot of comments around connectivity, spot comments as well, but how do I get from east to west of 101? You know, when you live on one side and all the shopping is on the other. North to south connectivity and also regional connectivity as well. So we also asked a number of questions specifically on looking to reset the plan's goals. There were some outdated goals, and that's one of the items that we knew that we wanted to update with this plan update. And so we coalesced down to the 4 goals that you see in front of you. These are draft also, so welcome to receive feedback on these. I'll read from left to right: connectivity, comfort, implementation, and vision 0. And as you'll see, these goals really go into the way that for the plan update, we've prioritized projects, and we can talk about some of what that looks like and also how it differs from the Safe Routes to School program.
Can I ask, if you go back to, I don't understand plain English.
Sure.
The first one on the left.
Yeah, connectivity is really just to ensure that routes, both for people walking and for people rolling by various means, are available and allow folks to get from origin to destination, where people live, to daily destination needs. And you will see as we go along that connectivity actually ends up being the highest prioritization criteria that we use to score the projects, and we can talk about why that is. This is just to highlight again how we receive some of our input at one location. Oh, here's Point San Pedro. Need a safer way of crossing the street at night, right? And a number of these 650 comments is what went into our pressure cooker, both for pedestrian comments, for bicycle comments, and we took all of these into account when developing our draft networks. And so that's what you see on the right side of the screen. For our pedestrian map, we have included a new element for this plan update. We've drafted a pedestrian priority network. So this is new for this plan's update. We've tried to base that off of where individuals walk the most, where they've mentioned that they walk the most, but then also the connectivity to destinations. And this pedestrian priority network, we are thinking of as the analog to the bicycle network. And we have a bicycle network in our current plan. And so this allows us to think in terms of network planning for pedestrians as well as network planning for bicyclists. I want to show this. This is a slide that gives a little bit of a peek under the hood to how we prioritized all of the projects that are identified as part of the plan. So a similar process to what we talked about for Safe Routes to School, but you'll see here that connectivity is very heavily weighted. Of course, we are looking at comfort, implementation, and vision 0. This again is draft, and we have ranked our projects, which are available to look at the top 20 ranked projects based off of this draft prioritization criteria. So now we're at the phase of the plan update where we're able to say we've taken this engagement, this input into account. We've created draft goals, draft prioritization criteria, a draft network, draft top project list. Have we got it right? Did we account for the input that we received in the first round? And so that's what we're looking to undertake for the second round of engagement. So we have been hosting events, participating in pop-ups since October. We have the second round of engagement live on the website since October through December 19th. There's 2 more weeks for you to give your input. And just to remind ourselves, because I think it's important to recognize the way that we've tried to walk this process together with the community, with the public, is to receive that engagement during phase 1, come up with a draft suite of network, prioritize projects, draft goals, and now in engagement phase 2, ask that question: did we get it right? Is there anything that needs to be adjusted? And we will make those adjustments and then plan to issue the final plan in the spring. We have a couple of events. Apologize if
It's thinking.
Oh, it's thinking? Okay, we'll get there. But a couple of events yet still in this round of engagement will be at, actually we have a virtual community meeting tomorrow at lunch. We'll be at the Marin Farmers Market on Sunday And then, of course, the website is available online until December 19th. And that'll close out the second round of engagement. I know many of you might have already participated at one of the events or have seen the website. Happy to have your thoughts here tonight. Also happy to have you ask any further questions, in the next couple of weeks, because we will take this input into account as we're finalizing the plan elements.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I've got one question right away. So I saw on the sources of people engaging that, there was something of an overweighting in some neighborhoods and an underweighting in others. And you said you're taking steps to address that. What concretely are you trying to do to ensure, that we don't hear mostly from a particular geography?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's always helpful to be ambitious, and it's part of American planning strategy to go into engagement recognizing that there will be challenges in soliciting participation from the key target audiences. So what we try to do for round 2 is a couple of things. We've attended pop-ups in communities. We did attend a pop-up in the canal in round 1. This time we've done 3 in equity priority communities. One in the canal, one in Terra Linda, and one at the downtown transit center to try to, hit the transit.
Which one in Terra Linda, the one in the movie night?
The movie night.
There was nobody there that night. Sorry.
Well, yeah, okay. Thank you for letting us know.
But that's important.
Yes, that is.
Sorry, my watch you're moving stuff there and it's making noise. Sorry.
Yeah, thanks. And maybe I'll also mention that we're also connecting with the Canal Alliance to send out notifications. They have a number of messaging groups amongst community members and partners, and trying to also highlight that all material is available both in English and Spanish. As you've seen, we have Spanish interpretation at our live virtual meeting tomorrow, and the website is also fully translated. So we're trying to increase that engagement for this round. Thanks.
Okay. Other questions from the committee?
Yeah. On the project scoring, you had Vision Zero at 15% at the lowest. I was just curious of how that was determined to be the lowest value.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks. This is actually something you see very frequently. A lot of bicycle and pedestrian master plans have a goal of safety as appearing first, and we don't want to lose that Vision Zero. But what we want to do is align the goals of this plan with other local planning documents. And San Rafael adopted its local road safety plan last year. And so we've adjusted the verbiage to Vision Zero.
Mm-hmm.
And what you'll see a couple of bullets here. One of the ways that we're scoring projects is alignment with the high collision network, both segments and intersections. But then we also want to recognize that as a planning document, we see there being a lot of value in focusing on increasing ridership, increasing the number of people who walk, and through mode shift, affecting behavior and travel patterns. And so providing that connectivity first, making sure that we're thinking from a network perspective. It doesn't mean that you're losing the understanding of implementing safety along with projects, but it's the way that we're prioritizing the projects themselves. As if this gets you from one place to another, that might be more important than if there has happened to be a number of crashes at that location in the past. So
yeah,
it's a rebalancing.
I get you.
Yeah.
Well, and I would think that the comfort one factors a lot into safety. It's not.
Yeah, and these are not
There's a
mutually
lot of-
exclusive. That's right. There's a lot of overlap between us. Indeed.
Yeah. I guess I was just thinking like there's that project that a while ago we were talking about with like creating a crosswalk by YMCA. And there's people who reported a lot of like close call type situations, but there never was any actual incidents. And then so how you balance vision and comfort and then actual implementation of putting in projects into action.
And that's a good example of if there were no actual incidents, then it would not have scored high on the safety criteria, right? And that doesn't mean that it isn't important in terms of getting people where they need to go.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that.
Question. So you mentioned about the pedestrian priority network. Could you talk a little bit more about what that is and how that would be used?
Yeah,
Maybe
thanks.
that's more a question for
So
staff, I don't know.
Yeah, no. What we're looking to do overall as part of this plan update is to rebalance the level of focus in the plan between bicyclists, which have typically been overemphasized, and people who walk or use mobility devices. And so one is creating a pedestrian priority network, at least kind of has a future vision network for both of those modes. Two, we're using the pedestrian priority network to also score as prioritization criteria for projects. And so if a project is on the pedestrian priority network, that also by default means that it will have a higher value in terms of connectivity, of getting individuals from origins to destinations. And so those are kind of the two ways that we're using it now, but we also want it to exist in the plan so it can be used as a stepping stone for other purposes, in future plan updates.
Okay. I mean, I'm really glad to see more emphasis on pedestrian. I think not only ours, but a lot of bike and ped plans tend to focus more on the bike facilities. And I was particularly alarmed when I looked at some of like the recent crash data and just how many are throughout downtown. And I was wondering if because I don't see anything in the downtown area that's appearing on this. And so I'm just wondering, is there a strategy for dealing with downtown?
Sorry, it is, but it's in the inset. At this scale. Actually, this is a former version of the map that doesn't have the pedestrian priority network on it. So thank you for knowing. Yeah, the pedestrian priority network really overlays where the highest number of pedestrians already exist. And then also it takes into account a number of other factors, but downtown is pretty much all in the draft.
Is there any approach being used to the downtown? It seems like a lot of it, at least when I looked at the data, it seemed like there were a few clusters, but for the most part, it was spread at like almost every intersection. And like, is there just kind of a zone approach to how?
Yeah, it's a great question. One of the things that we've talked about that will be intriguing is that, for instance, the LSRP and most of the data that we've really used to analyze crashes to date does not reflect post the 3rd Street project implementation, for instance. And almost every one of the intersections on 3rd Street is on our existing high collision network. Again, from crashes occurring between 2017 and 2021. And so it'll be really interesting to see if the intensity of improvements along 3rd Street makes a difference in terms of actualized incidents.
We've had 2 fatalities since the summer. Since when?
And whose fault is that?
Yeah.
I'm not.
I understand.
Yeah,
Everybody blames it on the driver, and it's definitely not always the driver.
Majority of incidents have been in
If I may
the
add.
last 5 years.
Yeah.
One of the things is we have a local roadway safety plan, but we are also, which county development, we accepted it. We are also looking with the county for Vision Zero, which is the policy side of the local roadway safety plan, which will kind of set the criteria in which project and the method to address all those things. And we are working, I think, the beginning of 2026. We are already asking for funding with the county. We have applied. And if we get that funding, we will develop the Vision Zero policy with the county. But if we don't get funding, then we have to seek other ways to fund that project.
I'll also very quickly mention the local road safety plan, fantastic document, has a number of actions outside of bicycle pedestrian specific topics, one of which is speed limits, and we'll talk about that later.
I see it's coming up on the agenda, so yeah. Thank you.
We have been presented and online have reviewed the project maps. And I think those list of projects are important. I have some specific things I'll ask about when I'm giving comments. But I'm equally interested in sort of like the text and the policy that a lot of these documents have. Are we going to be able to read any sort of the text or the proposed policies of the plan before it's finalized? Because we have not gotten to weigh in on any of that.
Yeah, that's a good question. We will retain a good portion of what exists in the 2018 plan and use that as a starting point to scaffold off of. And that's really been the approach to the full plan update. The goals really are the starting point of what will drive a number of targets and implementation measurement criteria that will exist. That is a table that exists in the current plan. So I think the city looks at that as kind of a guiding document on how to measure your progress going forward in the years forward. And that's really the key component of this in the current plan. So it's a good question. I don't know. We haven't really talked about socializing that before going into the plan document, but because one, what the public is normally most interested in is the map-based elements. But also two, we've really tried to be intentional about keeping input simple in order to increase the level of engagement. So the first round of engagement was really about spatially, tell us about your experience walking and rolling in San Rafael, and then we'll come to the second round of engagement, limiting the feedback to networks and prioritized projects. So that's kind of been the approach. But I appreciate the question. It's probably worth discussion.
All right, we open it up to public now, I guess. Yeah.
Is this questions or comments?
Yeah, I have all sorts of other comments. That was my clarifying questions.
Right. I'm sorry. Just a point of procedure. Do we typically hear public and then come back to board comments? Sure. That's what I was thinking here. Okay. I believe
Lori,
thanks.
So your 5 or 6 meetings that you had, which I had the picture up here and I don't have it right now. The first one was at in Terra Linda. There was nobody there. I was there. There was nobody there in any of those things that I've seen. I was there at the B Street Community Center. There was supposed to be a presentation at 6 o'clock. That didn't happen. That's infuriating. Okay, because I'm not an idiot and I don't understand any of this stuff. And I don't have the time to sit there and go over all this stuff. But your meetings seem to have been with the canal people, which they are definitely a part of San Rafael, but they are not only San Rafael. And that's not okay. You've got something going on tomorrow. It doesn't list the code of what the thing is. So you have to go back to the website, figure out where you happen to see it so that you can actually find the code to get to the Zoom meeting. I don't think a lot of people are going to do that, but hopefully I'm wrong. You've got something at the Civic Center. It doesn't say where you're going to be. That's a really big market. It doesn't say how long you're going to be there. Do I believe you're going to be there? I don't know. But to me, it seems to be only paying attention to people in the canal because you've done a lot of meetings there. And I've noticed that. And I was like, okay, I don't even know how I found it out, but there is more to this city than the canal. So, and I need you guys to be aware of that. And the whole thing at the B Street Community Center was absolutely infuriating when I left.
Thanks for your comment. I apologize. I was not aware about Terra Linda, so I apologize.
No, I believe you. I mean, but I went up there and there was a whole bunch of people doing things for the kids, and they were all behind the building, and I was like, oh. So I went over there, and there's still didn't find anything.
Yeah, and apologize about the B Street event. That was an audible decision to change plans on the spur of the moment, and really we made it.
Why don't we continue with public comments and not have too much dialogue here? Why don't you wait and respond to all the comments at once if possible?
Yeah,
otherwise, we're going to run out of time tonight. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah, my question is about the focus on the 20 priority projects. In the previous plan, every line item project, hundreds of them were ranked one by one from 1 down to whatever, 178. I'm wondering, are you going to do that again this time, or are you just putting them in 2 buckets? One is top 20 and the other is everything else?
Yeah, thanks for the question. We will have, and we do have a full draft list of prioritized scoring from 0 to 100, similar to the existing plan. What we noticed from the previous cycles of the plan is instead of having projects kind of lost in this long list, we like the idea of highlighting those that you might say this is an ambition to keep on the top of our mind for the next life cycle of the plan. So the scoring will be there. We're still kind of like the idea of calling out top 20 or 25, or we've thrown around a couple of different numbers, but that doesn't mean the scoring goes away. And that'll exist in an appendix as well. But I think in the plan document itself, we kind of like the idea of highlighting, here's the prioritized list of projects.
Have you thought about having kind of different categories, like, because sometimes the projects are very apples and oranges, and you've got some very small scale projects mixed in the top 20 with some very large projects, and those types of projects are really not in the same consideration for certain grants. Like there's some grants that are a better fit for small scale projects and some that are a better fit for large scale projects. Would it make sense to maybe have kind of different buckets and say, here's our top 10 or large scale projects, and here's our top 25 small scale projects to help with implementation given the grant landscape?
That's good.
Can I suggest maybe we listen to all the public comment?
Yeah, I
and then
think we need to, right, let's take the remainder of public comments.
Yeah, it's a real quick one about the project scoring based on CBPP goals. On the one hand, I understand the whole input simple to encourage the feedback, but I'm curious, were any of these ranked by the public? Was that something that the public had submitted that, and sort of what kind of weighting did you have for the public's selection?
Okay. So, any other public comments before we hear?
My name again is Patrick Seidler from WTBTM, and we wanted to really, just so you guys know, we're a nonprofit that's been working on active transportation for about 32 years now. And, we're from Marin County based, and we've seen the program in Santa Fe in the county, for years and years. And we've had the opportunity during this period of time to be in, work in, live in, study international best practices, and bring that information back to Marin County and the United States. Been actively involved in, establishing and initiating the NACDO design guidelines and other projects. We go on, litany of it. I just want to congratulate the city of Santa Fe. Your current bike plan is, I think, the best bike plan in the county. You guys, Alta was one who did it, 8 years ago, did a terrific job. And the city of Santa Fe and the city staff and the engagement, frankly, I think has been great. And the engagement, the outreach has been wonderful. We want to thank you, including the beatback. I mean, you guys are really engaged. You're top notch, and I want to congratulate you for that. And we welcome, we welcome, parametrics who've actually participated historically with it, and they're being, recognize them for their expertise. And we appreciate the engagement. We also, have the opportunity to be at the November 19th meeting to go over things. And what we would recommend is like kind of on a level on your connectivity phase. One of the things is if you really want to get people and provide them a safe alternative, you need to have safe and separate accommodation networks. So not just connectivity, because then you can draw like a class 3 and say, oh, we got connectivity, we're connecting this thing. That doesn't work. Does not work. What you need to focus on is what are the active transportation networks that are safe and separate, and are you connecting the city into those things? And you guys have got a good start, but I think you need to start with the definitional of connectivity of the networks being safe and separate. And those you'll find, again, that's best practice. And then the other thing that we wanted to point out was, frankly, this was from Parametrics, and I think it was mostly Parametrics. What they said is there's some funding that comes down through ATP And we look at some of the, what can be the most influential projects in Marin County, and you have two easily the top five, maybe two of the top three. One of which is the Crossroads, which we talked about before, which is actually not an economic priority community. But the other one, which is right on the edge of it, is the Civic Center Mobility Hub. And you've got the North-South Greenway going through it, the Bay Trail, the Northgate Promenade, the North-South Bikeway. But because of the way the process is working and it kind of slices and dices and it looks at the little project, it doesn't look at the overall thing. And Jimmy and we had an opportunity to discuss that, and they actually gave us the advice that there is a way to group it together and to get big grants for it. And so we really encourage you to take a look at those two large projects, the macro project groupings, the Civic Center Mobility Hub, which, by the way, all the agencies are building. They're all working, and the city's working on it. And then the other one
Please conclude. You're over 3 minutes.
Okay, and the other one is the one we showed you, the Crossroads. So the Civic Center Mobility Hub and the Crossroads. Those are the two macro projects we think that you got. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. There were a few questions in there. Do you have those in mind? Do you want to provide briefly your responses? Briefly.
I can recap a little bit on that. I think one of the items was, like if we've thought about, I think we answered the first one about like the ranking, right? We do eventually rank all the projects. It's just that we're really focusing on the core ones right now. But when we've published like the draft of the whole document, we'll have more formal lists, not just the maps. But I think just for easy consumption of the public, like this is how we've, elected to kind of share the information. And I think for, whether we are going to think about doing like different categories, like large versus small, I think it's really critical to remember like what Jimmy said earlier is that this is like a mid to long range planning document. And I think, we're trying to like make it digestible for ourselves too, to be able to like kind of pick projects out where it's kind of like quick builds. I think that is something that we are focusing on for some of our top priority projects. Feel free to chime in.
And it goes into the prioritization.
Right. It goes into prioritization. And then, you're going to notice that there are some that are more long range, which is like study the feasibility of doing these like safe and separate paths, right? Which takes a little bit more concept planning first. And then, we also need to make sure we have projects that are ready so that we can apply for grants. Because I think there's a lot of different components to it. So there's definitely like a capacity standpoint, like, what's really realistic. I mean, yeah, we've talked about top 20, but for like realistically, the city's not going to be able to work on all 20 in the first year, right? It's really like a long range planning document. And, there's also limitations in terms of the funding, which I think it was great, like how, we have suggestions on like, hey, what are some really like competitive like projects that we can apply for grants on? So hopefully I kind of like addressed part of that. And then there was also a question about how the public's input goes into the weighing of the project rankings. Do you want to talk about that one or?
Yes, I don't remember the question exactly, but part of the input that we're gathering will go into our next iteration of the rankings of the projects themselves. And that's one of the reasons why we're engaging a second time, really to, this is a draft product, but if we didn't get it right, then let's reorder based on what we hear in this phase of engagement.
And I think like even repetition, like if we're getting the same like comments from like multiple people, different neighborhoods saying like, hey, like this is really important, that's going to help elevate the prioritization of certain projects, right? So I think it's really critical. Like, it's like, hey, like, if you think this project's really important, your friend thinks it's really important, make sure you both comment on it. It's not like, I'm just going to be a rep. Right. And then, I think that was really it for the questions. The other ones were comments, which are all well received.
Okay. Well, then let's take it back to the committee for committee comments discussion.
I got one quick comment but I thought it was great that you included Spanish translations in each slide. I haven't really seen that before. And I've just been here, people can reference this later, so that's great. Small detail that helps a lot of exposure.
Thanks.
I like that it's on the next slide.
Oh, well, yes, for this one, there was too many words, yeah.
No, you've got some things to say here.
I spent an hour. I mean, awesome stuff. Everybody knows that I really appreciate the plans. I'm going to focus on a couple critiques. I generally like a lot of the things. In the map that we have, so generally through downtown, we still lack continuous north-south and east-west connections. This was first, I went, what's that? Bike connections, yeah. I went back and looked at previous plans and it showed up in 2011, what to do east-west through downtown. In 2018, the east-west feasibility study was the single highest priority project in our whole entire plan.
Yeah.
And in nearly 8 years, we've had no action on that. And so since 2011, we've had no action on what we call our highest ranked plans. And so when I see on the map, I saw 4th Street is labeled bicycle facility improvement to be determined. Just feels like kicking the can down the road. And so what I would like to know is an actual recommendation. Like I want to see the actual recommendation instead of to be determined. Sort of the same thing is happening with the north-south downtown gap. So we are closing some of the north-south gap with the smart path. Obviously, you have a wide town. One north-south connection is probably not the correct amount. Should probably be greater than one. This current plan shows C and D Street again as the connection through north-south, and that is the connection to get over Wolf Grade and to get over. Once again, it shows as bicycle facility improvement to be determined. And I think this connectivity, as we're talking about, is very important. And so I would really like to see an actual recommendation, whatever the plan comes. I will be disappointed if it just says to be determined. Other little things that came up just during at this meeting, the bond measure to put the new library in at Albert Park, which I think like construction starts in 2029. So it'll be like within the time span of this plan is the new library at Albert Park, and community center. Which I think will likely significantly change movements around there. So I hope that's being taken into account. It's a huge plan. And in some of the plans, I think we could be a little proactive about that. I know when that comes, there's funding and you do stuff too, but I just think that should be taken into account right there. Also, maybe I'm a little less concerned. I was seeing the pedestrian priority network. It wasn't making much sense when I saw it. The downtown precise plan has some pretty great recommendations for a pedestrian priority network. What I saw on the slide did not reflect my remembering of the pedestrian priority network in the downtown precise plan, which I thought was very good. It has great north-south connections and east-west connections. For example, B Street is the pedestrian priority network through there. So I think that's worth looking at. And I know you said that wasn't the actual slide there.
That was, unfortunately, I'm glad we caught that because I'll fix that before the virtual meeting tomorrow.
We'll also post the updated version, like when we put the slides on. We'll fix it first. Yes.
I could take a break if other people have things. Then I'll come back.
So then,
it's the question about the policies that we're gonna see, sort of like the text recommendation. I actually think is one of the most important things in all of these planning documents. And so, like, for example, will you recommend that the city formally adopts a policy requiring that elements of the bike plan be implemented whenever streets are repaved? When that doesn't happen, we miss these simple and cost-effective things. For example, a top 20 project on this list is 1st Street connecting through, which was repaved this year without any bicycle improvements. So, like, to me, I say and we talked about this at the time, I think that's a miss. The same thing happened with Manuel Freitas, which we talked about, again, was repaved and we missed improvements that come later. And so the reason I keep harping on the idea of just formally, if we're going to do it, we're just going to do it, if it's in the plan. So I would like to see, that's why I want to read those policies, because to me, that would be almost the most important thing that's in the plan. Sorry, I'm trying to go as fast as I can. The second is sort of like what a policy will say about outreach and implementation. You know, I'm hoping that the plan will serve as public outreach for these long identified projects, rather than like implementation of each individual project being delayed to conduct more outreach about it. Like we have things in this bike plan that have been in the bike plan for like 15 years. And so I would say, like, if they've been in the plan, we should just do them. And so there should be a policy to like recommend to city council, like, hey, if we're these are like, this is our outreach. We're doing a huge amount of outreach at all these different places and community feedback. So I don't think you need to repeat it and delay all the projects because of that. So I would like to see text like that, just that I can point to in the plan saying like, let's do some more action. And then finally, I think you answered it already. If there's going to be a progress tracking section in the plan, I think that's really important. We did an analysis of our current bicycle plan, which was not flattering. You know, we like at the time we did that a year or two ago, right? But the committee sort of showed that we've done we're way behind schedule. And I hope that the plan could have some, you know, sort of that tracking thing and like how can we stay on task, you know, say if we're behind, we're going to, you know, reprioritize. And I think those policies are really important because I think those policies show like how serious we are about the plan and implementing the plan itself. Okay, thank you very much. Sorry about this. Right?
I'm going to follow up on the last point. Sorry, were you going to say something?
Well, I was gonna just ask if you wanted us to wait for all the committee members to like ask questions, comment before we jump in. Okay, cool.
I think that would make sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to confirm.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just going to follow up on Bill's last point about just kind of tracking. And I was thinking it would be great to have a recommendation and hopefully something to be followed up on to have an annual report to council on the status of the bike plan. Just a report card, like a, you know, staff report. This is where we're at. This is what we said we were going to do. This is where we're at. And just have that be a routine thing. And I think just to kind of keep it in the public eye. I'm sort of thinking about, I know I was talking about kind of pedestrian issues downtown, and I'm thinking about that. I'm also thinking about bike issues downtown, but especially because there's a lot of housing going in around here. And especially downtown, there was just a big project approved down the block. There's another one under construction on Irwin. There's another one that's just proposed off of the freeway. And it's like at least 500 or 600 units, just those three projects. There's going to be a ton more people that would be walking places. There's no minimum parking within a half a mile of the train station. So I don't, not that no one's going to have parking, but there's going to be more demand for biking and walking trips. I guess I would like to, it would be great to see something about bike parking. I'm thinking even just, you know, a few in-street bike parking spaces throughout 4th Street, you know, one spot per block. There, and I think that also kind of maybe helps as a kind of a traffic calming, just to kind of visually change things a little bit. I mean, I know 4th Street has been listed as a potential bike route for a long time, and I'm not really sure what the answer is to that. So I'm always.
I thought they said the buses couldn't turn if they did something. That's the only thing that's stuck in my head.
I mean, I know there's curb extensions there. I mean, I don't know how you would end up doing something without pulling out parking and redesigning the whole street. So I'm a little torn about what to do with 4th Street, but I guess I would like to see something. I'm not sure what. I remember being struck with the pedestrian part that most of the collisions were due to drivers not yielding to pedestrians when they have it right away. And so what could we, I know we have LPIs, you know, that gives the pedestrians advance on this at the signals, but is there something that can be done to just generally improve pedestrian safety throughout the downtown? And then I'm thinking about the, you know, Phil mentioned the downtown precise plan, and we had a big discussion about B Street, and we had met with staff, and it was identified, and B Street has space it has more space than it needs to serve one lane of traffic in each direction. And are there things we can do with that space to pedestrianize it more? we were kind of brainstorming ideas about what planters and, just extending the reducing the width. I mean, I forget how wide the lanes are there, but they're much wider than they need to be. So are there streets that we could shift the balance between vehicles and pedestrians a bit more? So I think I'm in placemaking mindset, just the whole downtown area and how the development fits in and what direction downtown's taking.
Comments from the. Okay.
I got one more.
Well, we've already,
I just want
Did we already take
the
public
public to
comment?
know about the meetings that they're having, which I don't think that the public knows about that.
all right, well, I think we'll have to move this along. We're already past 8 o'clock and we're only about halfway through our agenda. So, Joanna, why don't you?
Yeah, I'll take a stab at answering like some of the items and then Said and Jimmy, please chime in, especially if I feel like I'm not hitting the point on some of these. I think a lot of great comments, well received. Phil, I think you brought up a couple of things about like downtown and our east-west and north-south like connectivity. As most of us are aware, like for 3rd Street rehab project, we did, kind of create like the cycle track along 2nd. And I think that's where it fits in, where we need better connection in the north-south direction to kind of bring everyone towards like downtown. And in 4th Street is one of like the main identified like connectors in the east-west direction, but also like if you mentioned the downtown precise plan, and I think it also recommends something kind of like different than just like putting in like bike lanes potentially. So it's really more of a, we need to think about what new developments are coming in, how does that fit in? And I think that, and how we want to connect and shift people. And I think that's why it's currently at a TBD. And it's likely going to be more of a feasibility study that needs to be conducted so we can reimagine what 4th Street should look like. And it might be a little bit beyond the capacity of what we can do on just like a bike and ped plan. Because I think it's going to take a lot more thought and like outreach.
That feasibility was our #1 project from the whole entire plan for the last 7 years.
Yeah, and I think like it also kind of fits into like budget and capacity too, right? Because then we also did spend a lot of time seeking like grant funding for the North-South Greenway gap closure we're trying to do, where we go from Mission Lincoln down Tamil Pius, and then it's going to tie in with the transit center, right? And then the transit center, that's still kind of going on its own course and schedule now, led by Going Gate. So I think there's just like a lot of things, like variables that we can't always account for when we're doing the bike and ped plan. So, I think just appreciating the patience and understanding that this is like a mid to long range planning document. And great.
Yeah. So, I know that doing like a feasibility study or building solution is beyond the scope of what can be done here. But given that it was labeled the same way in the last plan, is there something we could do, like just say alternatives include, and just like things, even if they're not the exact alternatives that we studied, at least to kind of lay out what would potentially be considered, provide like a vision or be thought provoking or.
So I think we can definitely take that into consideration and kind of see what more we can try to like expand on.
Because otherwise it just feels like you're pushing it aside and
kicking the can down.
It's just.
Right, but part of our bike and ped plan update will also be demonstrating like what kind of progress we have made. So I thought that was a really great idea too, right? But just keeping in mind like progress may not necessarily be the completion of one project, because starting from planning, design, construction, bid, it's a multi-year project. So like, for example, North-South Greenway, great, we got the grant this year, but we won't really be able to get started on it until the following year. So there's like a lot of rollover, right? And even with our, we didn't publish an updated like work plan for our department this year, but last year it was like 28 projects, right? But it doesn't include, it was only for CIP. It doesn't include all the different operational pieces that we're doing. So we actually have a draft version where there's actually like 50 different like projects and tasks that are going on for our engineering team. So just trying to put a little bit of perspective onto that. So, we're trying to tackle it, and these citywide plans, which we're working on multiple of them too, it's like really going to help inform us on how we plan our work plan, our budget, kind of moving forward in the next few years. And great reminder on the First Street. That's actually been something we're talking about and incorporating into the next year's PMP project so that we can include the striping. And I think it's just like it's like a really narrow road, and we really need to think about like how we would restripe it. So we haven't forgotten about it, but sometimes perfection is very difficult to achieve. And let's see. Bike parking, that's actually a really great suggestion and something we've talked about with our daylighting effort, right? As one of the options that we can do, like if we have to like reduce like a parking spot, what can we put there instead? So that's like some of the things that we are thinking about. So I'm glad we're kind of in alignment in the type of thinking.
What does daylighting mean?
It's the AB 413, Assembly Bill 413, where cars like should not be parking like within 20 feet of the crosswalks marked or unmarked in the approaching direction, and 15 feet if it's like if there's a bulb out.
Gotcha.
So as part of that effort,
So some red paint.
correct. Like depending on the locations, we're using a variety of different options to kind of achieve that goal.
This will help it, like Octavia.
I just want to add one comment you had about pedestrian fatalities in downtown. That policy should be part of Vision Zero, what should be done. But now currently, when there's a fatality or severe injury, I immediately meet with officers and look at issues and solutions. Can we do something fast? Like example is that penalty freighters, we did a lot of stuff there. And some of the things is the fatalities that happened in downtown, a couple of them, it's because the pedestrian goes and left turn is allowed. So it's not protected left turn. So for that, you have to have a left turn lane and then modify signal. So if it's feasible to do that, it's an hour less that this plan won't address, and the purpose is not this. So that's really my job, safety with police officers. When we discuss these regularly at the closed meeting, which we have, traffic committee meeting, every month, which is police, fire, parking services, traffic planning, and also the street. We all meet every month, and there are issues that we all see it or staff see it, especially when I drive, because I'm new. So everything is, I have questions. So, and it's not very easy relationship here of these we have been discussing really heavily, fighting where direction. If you put it that way, it's internal discussion, and also traffic committee is a great help. So those are emergency safety issue. We address it differently than leave it to this kind of document. And then one of the comment about was the pilot program, the ease of implementation, which we say implementation, that has a lot of point, especially for grant, but we haven't separated long-term project from short-term pilot, but that has an important role. And so when we get, like you said, resurfacing, we usually look at shovel-ready implementation, which an example will be this year on St. Pedro, we are behind the scene, we're looking at parking needs, parking survey, occupancy, can we do it? And I think on First Street, it was postponed, to my knowledge. I wasn't here, but I heard that the resurfacing was postponed to this year, or at least part of the First.
I think the striping part, because we have to look into the like how we would, because it's really narrow, right? So we have to look into how
we didn't do the resurfacing last.
I think we did.
Yeah, it's done.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's new pavement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, green back sharrows, I guess.
Yeah.
So those elements, I think some of them is addressed differently, especially the severe injury. And what Vision Zero does is these policies that we are already doing, formalize it and goes to council and set a goal like, okay, in 5 years and 10 years, we want to approach that zero policy. I mean, cities like San Jose have a zero policy Vision Zero, one of the first cities in the first 3 months exceeded last year fatality for the 12 months. It's very unusual.
Yeah.
So it's a challenging thing, but for us to meet immediately with these two collision, I met with traffic sergeants, the people who took and looked at this. Do you see anything I should do? I asked them, and then I look at independently myself. So if we don't want to leave it for this.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Thank you.
It's good to know that you're doing that.
Yeah.
And that's also something we can bring back as an actual agenda item in the future. If that's what we're interested in, to talk more about like the safety aspect and not just the connectivity.
Yes. 15%.
I just had a couple of other thoughts I wanted to throw out there. One, I remember a while back when, I think it was when Nat was still here as the traffic engineer, and we had a presentation about the BioVision system and with all of the technology and the signals. And it sounded like there was a lot of data that could be mined from that about bike and ped movements through all the signalized intersections. Is that something that can be tracked on an annual basis to see like, okay, what results are we getting from whatever changes we're making? Are we seeing increases in bikes and pads?
I think in the areas where we have the cameras, we would be able to like get the counts, right? So, in that sense, it's like, hey, we put in this new Grand Avenue cycle track, right? Are we getting a lot more like users out of there? We could do something like that, although I don't think we have it at all of our intersections yet. So it's like a matter of, also budgeting to build out our network.
I mean, all of them might be overkill. I was just thinking just to say, maybe do it at the same intersection every year, these 5 intersections or whatever,
The data is there. So whenever the BioVision, say it was installed 5 years ago, I can access.
But you can go back.
They're all there. So I can check in the year, say it wasn't 2016 or 2018, I can go there, the data, except there are some cases where for a week camera was not working, so there's a gap. But I can see the data that time and before the cycle track, and I can see the data provided it has BioVision. They're all there. The counts for head, for bike, for all of them, for peak. And that's what we use a lot to inform developers when they close lane and to say, look at the data, choose the time that you can close, look at the volume. Urban, I found that weekday, weekend doesn't matter. It's the busiest street. So if they wanted to close construction during the weekend, and we said, no, only one that you can do is night work. So it does inform us in a lot of ways, and the data is there. If we get a chance, or specifically your request on grant, what was bicycle beavers, provided we had a camera at that time.
Okay, great. The other thing I wanted to mention, and I know it's beyond the scope of this project, but I was specifically thinking back to the B Street issue, which would have been identified as a pedestrian priority zone. And, one of the, I just think there needs to be some rethinking of parking in the downtown area. There's underutilized parking structures, and, all of that surface parking just isn't necessary on all streets. So if that could be thought about, maybe on just selected streets. I'm not saying throughout the entire downtown, but if as you say B Street is, so it's like, okay, well, we could free up 2 8-foot parking lanes, or 1 8-foot parking lane, and just give us more space. And just again thinking about trying to pedestrianize certain corridors.
No, thanks for bringing that up. I'm familiar with that recommendation in the precise plan. I think that's a miss for us to not have included in our list of projects. So, thanks.
What part of B Street are you talking about?
B Street between third and fifth.
I actually came up B Street today and realized that if you're trying to make a right turn, the guy behind, I'm trying to go straight and there's a guy behind me wanting to go right, well, he should be able to go right, but he can't because there's not enough room. Because now it's two ways.
Okay, so I think we're at the point, have we received all the committee feedback on this one? Okay, so are we at the point to vote to receive and accept the report?
Yes. I'll make a motion to receive and accept this report.
All right. All in favor? Great.
Thank you for agreeing.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very helpful discussion on that one. So, yeah, now we're on to page 2 of our agenda. Since it's already past 8 o'clock, we've already heard about Embarcadero in the past. Maybe it's worth, very brief recap of what is new. But, we don't need to start from the very beginning on this one.
Crazy narrow roads. They're gonna make a one-way.
It's here.
There we go.
All right, well, thank you for having me back. Jimmy Jessup from Parametrics. We'll do a quick rundown on Embarcadero Way. And the plan to move forward with the one-way pilot project. Talk about some of the things briefly. Study area again, just above the baseball field at the high school. Embarcadero Way, you'll see the neighborhood around it is partly in the city, partly in the county. Just want to mention that so that we all recognize that we're coordinating with the county as well on this project. Existing conditions, one of these photos here, you see the steep embankment, also kind of the informal walking path in between, the high elevation and the high school itself. 450 vehicles per day. We've done the counts on a couple of different days now, a couple of years ago, as well as this year. That's a very low volume of traffic. A lot of cities will say a neighborhood greenway for bicycle volume purposes is about 1,500 or less vehicles per day. So 450 is quite a low number. About 70% of those travel northeast. So remember that more cars are going northward than southbound. That's very low. Collisions that have been reported mostly run off the road, and you'll see why. This is why. So, this is just from us being out there for a short period of time. And we even saw an altercation between, it's a lot. Even just pedestrians trying to walk down the street don't have a lot of room. So,
Was this done when there was construction in the way going on the other?
No, but one day there was, but then the other couple of days there was not. But I know the construction.
That's impressive, by the way.
Tire ruts up on the hillside. There's some scrapes on the utility poles themselves. It's even buses look like they barely fit on. So, look at these pictures. Fantastic. Kelly dug in the archives. 1975 was the first inception of this project of considering what to do with Embarcadero Way.
Wow.
Fast forward to 2022.
You should go into the paper files. It's amazing what you'll find there.
Yeah, well,
That's amazing. That's this.
These are digital files of the paper file.
Right.
A couple of years ago, a survey solicited tepid support for a one-way pilot, but this is kind of the re-engagement of that project. We are looking to move forward with a pilot. And again, pilot being, it will plan to be in place for a minimum of 3 months. Why 3 months? We want to have a one-way pilot in place long enough for behavior to normalize and take traffic counts after the pilot is in place, not when people are confused, but when people have a bit more of an expectation that the one-way restriction is in place. And then I'll talk about how we'll look to evaluate that. Prior to a pilot, we took traffic counts the fall of this year. Again, there was traffic counts taken 3 years ago as well. And we'll plan to do that in February and in April, again, with a go live of the pilot in January. This shows existing traffic counts from this fall. Again, when school is in session, you'll see about 450 total cars per day in both directions on Embarcadero Way, a bit more up on Mission Avenue. And keep some of these numbers in mind, they're all relatively low. That's kind of one of the takeaways here. And then what we will be looking at with traffic counts that we take when the pilot is in place, again, vehicles will be permitted to go northbound. They will be restricted to go southbound. So vehicles that would have gone southbound, where will they go? And now we have the before, we can compare with after. Do they go around on Marina Court Drive, quick get to Third? Do they go over to Marina and huff over the hill or will they just kind of kick back toward downtown? So, or maybe the overall number of trips in that direction will decrease, you know, so this is fun. This is, you know, kind of like a science experiment. Our next steps on this project, we're trying to get to a place where we can have a pilot concept plan ready so we can determine what materials are needed. This will all be temporary, but not so temporary that it can be lifted and thrown down the hill. And it's going to be self-installed by the maintenance crews from the city themselves. And so we'll do some of that coordination, also coordination with the county, sending out notices later this month. We will go live mid-January, and then we will have a survey, an online survey that takes place in March of next year. Again, we'll take our traffic counts as well at 2 different times in the spring. And we'll put all that together, do an evaluation, and come with final recommendations sometime mid next year. We only are going to do the pilot once, but we also want to think through from the evaluation and the traffic counts that we get, what would this pilot have looked like if it would have been one direction, one way in the other direction? What would it have looked like if it was a full closure? So we want to try to forecast and prognosticate as best as we can, having only one stab at the apple. Okay, so that's the pilot plan. We're here tonight to solicit feedback from the BPAC. Think through any of the elements. Is notification sufficient? We'll send out a flyer a month in advance to, you know, everyone in a radius. We'll also do another flyer just prior to the project and the pilot. And then we'll also have the survey, 2 rounds of traffic counts afterwards. Yeah, that's it. What do y'all do?
Any questions from the committee?
You're not extending it down to San Pedro. It's just Marina to.
That's correct. Yep. Just the section between the 2 intersections. Why? That's a good question. So that enables this alternate route as a potential access back to 3rd. And so that makes it as robust a study as possible.
Okay.
Do the residents know about this?
So I've got a question is, what's the bicycle pedestrian angle? This is all traffic planning, but I didn't hear very much about what this means concretely for bicyclists.
That's a good question. Yeah, so a lot of these type of one-way conversion projects might have been raised because traffic speeds are high and we're looking to, you know, reduce speeds, but at least on Embarcadero Way, there are a high number of pedestrians that walk that street. And we saw one of those pictures of someone going by. And so there's an adjacency with.
Is part of the pilot to study impacts on pedestrians? Is there some way to know?
We'll have a question on the survey about, you know, how this affects, you know, your experience in multiple travel modes. Yeah.
So you said there was an unpaved path that's below. Does it parallel the entire segment?
Does. You can kind of see it in satellite view along this way, and then it goes under the trees. And
it's used as a mountain bike trail for the mountain bike team and for cross country.
Also, the football team does hill repeats on it.
Did I say that
That's
again?
good to know.
Yeah, there's hill repeats and the cross.
You said the width of that, it goes down to 11 feet.
As narrow as 11 feet 2 inches. Yes.
Yeah. If it was wider, I would say maybe you could stripe it to have like a pedestrian walkway up.
We did think about
that's
that.
A little too narrow for that.
Not quite. Yeah. Driving on both sides really just barely gets you a travel lane.
The impact on bicycles will be from Mission and Marina as a popular cycling route. So it's routing some more vehicular traffic on bicycling routes. It's very low traffic though.
I got stuck on that street. That's a scary little street you got
Oh,
up there.
Mark, there, yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Totally. I've been yelled at multiple times when I was in high school driving on the road. It's probably like the BMW's fault in that picture.
Awesome residents there.
No judgments at the top.
Any other questions from the committee before we? Okay, any public comment?
I was gonna say, I love the northbound direction. Just kind of yield to climbers, or whether it's bikes or hikers, because the climbers are the ones that are not struggling, but that's all. So I appreciate you guys considering that direction. And it's also the traffic pattern. My wife likes to sneak through there when the traffic is really busy at the high school.
Total.
Yeah.
So is she not gonna be able to do that now, or she is?
She will be.
Okay, okay.
So thanks for the direction, even though it's not entirely adjacent to Lacey Heads.
Yes. Move to accept this report.
Your hair's getting long.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Great. Okay, that takes us to item 2D.
Who did the second? Oh,
Very
perfect, thank you.
Thank you all for having me back.
Thank you.
Jimmy Jessup, paramedic. This is also another topic that we presented on. This was about a year ago. So let's talk about speed limits. I will give a quick overview to bring us back to what we learned a year ago. AB 43, what are speed limits? But then we'll kind of talk about this project specifically. As you remember, we talked about downtown speed limits last year. And phase 2 of this project, which we are now underway with and have initial recommendations for, consider speed limits outside of downtown and the rest of the city. Okay, speed limits again. What is the speed limit of this street? How do we know? There's no sign. 25 miles an hour, residents and business districts, prima facie, which means, at face, or kind of that's default. All other roadways that are not defined as such in this California Vehicle Code are required to have an engineering and traffic survey conducted, where you take spot speed surveys. And the 85th percentile speed, read that definition. What it means is the fastest 15% of vehicles set the speed limit. And that's how speed limits have always been set in the state of California forever and eternity until AB 43. Yes, AB 43.
It's a good build up.
It's one of the reasons why AB 43 really is quite momentous. And it, for the first time, allows local jurisdictions additional flexibility in establishing speed limits. So it requires taking into account vulnerable roadway users when setting speed limits, and also says for a number of scenarios, you have an ability to reduce speed limits by an additional 5 miles an hour. You can't do anything you want, but an additional 5 miles an hour compared to where speed limits would have been established. And all of these provisions went into effect June of last year. And so that's why the city is really being proactive in taking this upon themselves. But it didn't come out of thin air. Again, here's the link to the local road safety plan, one of the recommendations. And I always include this, would be remiss if not to. The reason why we look at speed limits is because the very close relationship between speed in the event of a crash and pedestrian outcomes. The inflection point between whether someone survives or dies as a result of a crash really is between 20 and 40 miles an hour. So this is the band where it's important to both set proper speed limits and then also to align speeds with those established speed limits. Okay, now this takes us back to last year. Recognize the city and a lot of effort to essentially adopt the establishment of a 20-mile-an-hour zone throughout most of downtown. You'll see second, third as exceptions to that, but this is really quite a step change difference, especially for such a large area. When we presented, I think in October last year, we had this zone about yay sized, and the BPAC gave the encouragement to extend that, to the west end of downtown. And I'm glad to say that that is what ended up being passed by council. So appreciate your input from this body. Phase 2 is what we're underway with now. And just to give a quick overview of what that schedule has looked like, this spring we adopted the speed limits. We've done some early implementation this fall, and concurrent with that, we started looking at the next tranche of potential speed limit reductions. Coming next summer, we hope to have passed through council adopting an ordinance for additional speed limit reductions and then do a full implementation, striping, signage, educate. There's a mandated 30-day warning period. And then going into the next year, as we're coordinating with the police department on this as well, to both enforce as well as evaluate for effectiveness. I showed this last year, but then I also want to say, waha. Now, San Rafael is added to this list. And, a lot of other areas in the Bay Area have done this for select roadways. Again, San Rafael has done a whole downtown area. So, pat yourselves on the back. How do we go about this for the rest of the city? We started with the engineering and traffic survey, which again is required to be conducted every 7 years. And this actually gives us an opportunity to re-survey speeds on the street. Unfortunately, high speeds actually mean that traffic engineering profession is supposed to establish a high speed limit. But what we're now looking at is based on the provisions of AB 43, where do we have ability to reduce those established speed limits? Okay, here's our draft set of recommendations. We've really looked at more roadways than what appears on this map. All of the recommendations you see here are a 5 mile/hour reduction from existing speed limits. And other roadways were evaluated but might not have ended up on this recommended list because if recorded speeds are too high, then the California Vehicle Code doesn't let you bring it all the way down. You still have to be within what AB 43 allows. A couple of things to note on here. Okay, you'll see a gap here. This actually brings all of Anderson down to 30 miles an hour. Would, if it's adopted. Point San Pedro, recording with the county, it goes in and out of county city jurisdiction. And so the county is also interested in reducing the speed limit from 40 to 35.
Thank you.
Yeah. You'll see a number of 20-mile-an-hour streets. So this hopefully will bring a recognition of 20 miles an hour as a commonly established speed limit in areas outside of downtown, throughout the entire city. And why spotty? Why here and there and, not everywhere? AB 43 provisions really focus on where land uses generate high volumes of pedestrians and bicyclists. And so streets that go by schools or, hospitals, business districts, that is really what allows those provisions to kick in. And so we've tried to cast as wide of a net as possible, making sure that lower speed limits are sensible. And this is the draft recommendations so far. Okay. Long list. Maybe I'll come back to the screen and you can look at the full list in just a moment. Also want to mention, we've had the public website for this project up since October of last year. There's a whole list of FAQs, fun stuff if you want some reading. We have a survey that has also been live since then. We're presenting tonight. We'll also look to present to the Police Advisory and Accountability Committee. We did also for the first round. We'll do that early next year in preparation for presenting to council. And then again, full implementation summertime 2026. And I think, same timeline, same overview. That should be it. I'll go back to that list in case you're interested in taking a look.
How many people can I ask a question?
We will do that after we give the committee the opportunity to ask questions, but yeah, we'll come to public. Any questions from the committee first?
I was wondering if there's been any strategizing about enforcement. Maybe it's more of a question for staff.
So the implementation, that 30 days is after we install sign. So in downtown, you probably haven't seen a lot of sign because our first goal was let's replace the existing sign. But as Jimmy mentioned, on 4th Street, there was no sign because it's 25. We just walked it today, so we'll install all the signs on 4th and also cross. So we haven't done that. We have only installed in some spot. So that's in the schedule. Once we install that, police already know that we will tell them, okay, 30 days from installation, then they can enforce it. So,
Are they planning to have some kind of active enforcement?
I believe so. We discussed it in traffic committee and they have more motorcyclists. So their staff has increased in traffic section quite a bit.
Yeah, I saw San Pedro was listed there on the speed reduction, which I think is a great thing because it's built like a speedway. Definitely growing up there, I sped too much, but I was curious if there's like been a look at like the data with accidents there because you have a situation where you had it at 35 miles per hour about 10 years ago. It was changed to 40 miles per hour. And so now we're going to go back. I wonder if has there been any consideration to look at how that speed changes to be able maybe to inform ahead of time what you could expect and see if it was consistent and then see what type of things were changed between them and details.
Do you want to share about the grant that we're going for?
Yeah, we applied for, I think, 3 intersections, crosswalk for RRFB, which is rectangular rapid flashing beacons, and high visibility crosswalk. County is doing a signal, pedestrian signal, also called Hawk, that we have in near high school. They're installing that. And then we are also doing a resurface together with county. So we're thinking about, and then that's what the pilot grant application is to do with resurfacing. We're also thinking possibly lane width reduction. And we're currently doing a survey. Is it parametrics? Parametrics is doing a survey of parking in certain area because you have bike lane and then you don't have bike lane. So so the removal of parking, how much will, because we are planning to do bike lane all the way if possible, if council approves it, and obviously people will.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because if you're repaving.
You're taking my parking, so it's a,
Sounds like a great way to utilize funds efficiently and also account for preventing close proximity and comfort level for bicyclists going around. That seems like an awesome little trifecta there. But I guess my question was more of around like we already have a potential, like I'm not sure how much data was collected on this, but you have a potential to be able to see how much that reduction in speed limit inversely could be effective, right? Just as much as looking at or shifting from 40 to 35, you could look at what changed from 35 to 40.
That's kind of one of the fun things of taking speed surveys. It's really,
I think the chart you had for injury with 20 and 30, did you have 40 there?
Yeah.
So how much?
Yeah, that was
it-
great.
Yeah.
40.
Yeah, I love that.
I also didn't know the history. That was it. All of Point San Pedro that was
All
35.
Point San Pedro was 35 all my life, and then right after high school, so that must have been about 10 years ago, it shifted to being 40 miles per hour. They did a speed study and increased the speed, and so now we're bringing it back. So I was just wondering if you could look backwards and that could potentially inform this.
That would be really interesting.
Yeah, I think the flexibility, the local agency here, very less flexibility in the behavior, because this speed limit is the geometry road and behavior of.
Totally, it's
people.
built like a speedway. It's fun to drive.
So now we still, if we had the previous without AB 43, we couldn't reduce it to 35.
Yeah.
So now we have the opportunity, but between 30 and 40 and 35, there is.
I'm all for that. It's just I think it could be useful to potentially look back at that change.
And this is based on survey of overall.
That would be great to look back at.
Yeah,
it's really interesting. One of the fun provisions of AB 43 is it allows you to revert back to a previously adopted speed limit.
Already got it.
But it has to be the last previously adopted, not the last. And since you have to take it every 7 years, it would have been the one before 2018, which was our last one. So, but there's a number of ways to get back to that 5 mile an hour clawback. So that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Just by this chair.
Any other questions from the committee? Public comment? You don't have to.
I just want to say thanks. It's wonderful to have all this done, especially on Point San Pedro. I just had a question for Syed. Maybe you could tell me more about the parking survey. You don't have to answer it right now. I don't want to get in the weeds, but
yeah, so it's a brief survey of occupancy the whole 7 days at noontime and in the evening, which is heavy. to see, and then the side street for a couple of 100 feet to see the side street. So we're looking at here. We are also briefly looking, we are not going inside private parking lots, but we are looking at occupancy of parking lots.
So it's observational,
Observe.
just looking at it during
The street is real count. The private is observational. So we want to give that feedback back to probably council, say here. Want to do bike lane and then, what will be the impact on people's parking. So,
Perfect, thank you.
All right, back to the committee then. Any commentary?
Just noticing that Nova Albion is 1 for 20. It might address the concerns raised earlier about Nova Albion.
And Fifth Avenue. Euro.
Love it. And decent. Sorry, I guess this was a question, but you had mentioned that it's expanding out towards the rest of the neighborhoods, but this round is kind of necessary before it gets expanded to the neighborhoods?
This is what we were able to expand to the neighborhoods.
Sorry, what was the limiting thing for why it can't be expanded to all neighborhoods?
So AB 43 requires one of the provisions that a high pedestrian or bicycle generated land use has to be within close proximity to that street. So most residential streets actually don't qualify for this provision. Nova Albion, as a good example, has 2 schools on its frontage. So,
yeah.
Right.
I'll start a school on my street.
Yeah. That's the way it should be.
Any other comments?
Someone else like to make a motion?
All motions accept.
Yeah, second. All right, all in favor? Excellent, great, thank you. All right, thank you, Jimmy.
Thank you.
All right.
We have a guest presentation for our next agenda item.
So 2E, we need to select a chair and a vice chair for next year. Have I done a terrible job tonight? I'm going to get a nomination.
Time, huh? This is what it's gonna be like, huh? We'll book an extra hour.
I thought you did great. Except for cutting short.
Oh, do we have a presentation?
Just this one slide.
Okay. Chair, vice chair. Right?
Yeah, is that the proposal?
Nominate or?
Yeah, I think
I think it's fixed. Yeah.
I think the next in line for chair is usually the vice chair, and then for the vice chair is the next person who hasn't served as a chair or vice chair yet. So just want to make sure we kind of offered it to Annabelle to see if you would be interested or had capacity to. It's a volunteer. It's a volunteer. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then after Annabelle, Barry would be next in line. Would you like to?
Reprise.
For you, like.
Sure.
Great. All right, well then, is there a motion?
I move to accept our fearless leaders. I mean, we should have accept a motion for our next chair to be Sean and our next vice chair to be Barry, starting in our February 11th meeting.
I second the motion to accept our great fearless leaders.
All right, those in favor? Hi, thanks, you won't regret it. All right, so here we are to item 2F. We have our calendar for next year. I don't know if there's any need to discuss that.
I think the main thing to, yeah.
Oh, is it
I'm gonna
different?
miss one of them because.
Oh, I see. I see, we're not.
I've never missed
first.
one. Yeah.
Okay.
What's the reason for this change?
I think sometimes like the first meeting, it ends up right after like a holiday or it's like right the same week as city council. So it's a little challenging. And I think usually the first week of August, there's like a city council recess, right? So then like if they recess, usually we do a recess too. So then this gives us like a better shot at like 6 meetings in the year. But you know, that's why it's up for discussion. If like certain dates don't work for the quorum, right?
I think I'll vote against another recommendation. I might get fired. I move to accept the dates.
Second.
I will miss one, but.
All right. So I guess we'll accept the recommendation, it seems. Great. Okay, well, that takes us through the item 3 agenda item. We have placeholders for staff liaison and commissioner reports. I don't know that. We're way over
that
time.
liaison, we just have to mention a couple of updates for project.
Okay.
Pedestrian signal at the Francisco East Boulevard and Grand at the bend. It's almost complete. It will be turned on, currently scheduled on Monday, December 15th. And then
Mayor be there with the ribbon cutting.
no, I don't think we started on. So hopefully,
So
now you have to follow.
was that a hawk signal?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, our second arc. And then the 2 projects that we had, high visibility crosswalk at RRFP at Lincoln and Wilson Court and Lincoln and Brookville. That was the bids was had some inconsistency and was rejected. So we re-advertised it. We're going to cancel probably 15 or later in December for accepting the contract for the new contractor to start the work. This work will start hopefully in January, February.
Great.
And then there's a canal one, correct?
Yes, yeah. So then there's a canal active transportation enhancement project where we're doing bike, ped, and thank you. Transit like upgrades, and it includes like lighting improvements as well. We have a virtual meeting next Tuesday at 5:30. So spread the word, come join. This is just one of our many engagement efforts. We'll be doing a presentation, and we'll also have like a session of like Q&A. Mostly, we're still kind of working on the format, but I think it's really to help get the news out and share what we're going to be doing.
It might be worth mentioning in the seminar that canal, if this gets approved, AB 43, it will be 20 miles per hour.
Oh, okay. Yeah. What else do we have? Kind of like we actually have several Lincoln Avenue projects. The first one that Saeed mentioned is one of our first like HSIP grants that we received for the 2 intersections. We also received a second one that goes from 2nd to Paloma.
8 intersection.
Yeah, it's like a pretty like it's like the stretch closer towards downtown. And it's gonna include like a lot of different like was there like
signal mast arm?
Yeah.
Some of them doesn't have mast arm. It's so more visibility of signal, and then protected left turn pocket for pedestrian, things like that. So that's the goal. It's for safety.
So we're waiting for the granting agency to give us authorization before we can release the RFP for that. So timing kind of like constraint, but we're working towards that. And after we do that portion, we're also looking on doing the rest of Lincoln Avenue, which we're hoping maybe we'll be able to get a grant for as well.
We're
And
also installing Mile Vision 8 additional camera at 5 intersection.
Lincoln.
No, it's kind of, we have around downtown, but some of the outside city like Civic Center, and we don't have any. So we're trying to move every year and install like battery backups and then Mile Vision.
Great.
Hopefully you'll get 100% of the signal having that Mile Vision.
Yeah.
And then Saeed's also working on a draft policy for like traffic calming pilot projects, which we'll probably bring to one of our future meetings. So I think that's going to be really interesting based on some of the conversation we had earlier about the bike and ped plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that'd be a great way to kind of line up with 43.
Mm-hmm.
Actually not have enforcement be the only arm to
Right.
reduce speeds.
Are those Lincoln projects ready for construction, or have they been designed yet?
The first one that Saeed mentioned.
The 2, it's been designed, the one I mentioned, which is the 8. No, we haven't issued the RFP yet. Yeah.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you. All right, commissioner reports, anything we need to report? No, we are at the time for open time for public expression for items not on the agenda. Thank you.
You made it.
All right. All right, then I will go ahead and move us to adjourn.
So moved.
All right. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.